Hello, and welcome to Back Through the Lens, where two film school friends talk about movies through the haze of nostalgia. The good, the bad, and the ones that aren't quite how we remember them. I'm your host, Rachel, and with me is my co-host, Joe. Today's movie is Back to the Future.
4th of July, 1985. Americans are going to celebrate the long holiday weekend with Phil Collins' studio blaring on the radio and Clint Eastwood's Pale Rider on the big screen. The kiddies are rolling around the neighborhood on their big wheels, toting around their strawberry shortcake dolls and pound puppies. After the burgers come off the grill, head into the house, put on your favorite Hawaiian shirt, and watch The Love Boat or Miami Vice. In this season, we celebrate films that turned 40 in 2025, the same year we also hit that milestone. So for this rewatch, I actually have the DVDs, and I put them on. In the last few episodes, we talked about trailers because I had to rent them or watch them on a streaming service, and they kind of autoplay.
Mm-hmm.
Remember how to navigate a DVD screen, first of all. And found the teaser trailer and did not love. Don't ever really remember seeing it. It's just like a lot of random close-up shots. Anytime they showed Marty for most of the trailer, I was like kind of half thinking this is the original footage with the other guy.
Oh, yeah.
But I also just forgot how, like, tiny, not McFly is. Michael J. Fox is.
Michael J. Fox, yeah.
It is McFly, goddammit. Again, this was a teaser trailer. It's just, like, kind of boring.
This is the same one I saw when I looked up the trailer for Back
Sure.
to the Future. And you're right. It's very minimal.
Yeah.
I don't think you get a sense of the movie at all.
No.
I
like-
realize it's obviously sci-fi. He's doing time travel, right? But this teaser, it's just close-ups of Marty, like various body parts, and then
Yeah.
close-ups of
Like
parts
lights.
of the DeLorean.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you would think that this movie is so much more techie, sci-fi, versus what we're really watching is Marty McFly spending a lot of time in 1955.
Maybe they didn't cut a trailer because they're too busy recutting the film. I don't know.
Yeah, the marketing especially got sped up for this film, so that might be part of it.
I feel like every movie we talk about, the marketing's horrible.
Yeah, I feel like this season especially, and we'll hear this again with Back to the Future, the studios really didn't have much belief in anything they were putting out for some reason.
Could you imagine? Everyone's just failing upwards and coasting.
Mm-hmm.
Is that crazy?
It's amazing to me that any of these got greenlit because every background I read this entire season, it's been like, yeah, the studio heads really didn't want to make this, but they threw them a bone. And
But that being said, this is definitely one of my favorite movies of all time. I haven't watched it in a while, so this is actually was a really nice refresher. I think today's world, streaming, everything's accessible, so it's really easy and really fun to watch something new every time you want to watch something.
mm-hmm.
But back in our time, it was just either you rented it or you owned it. Like I have the VHSs, I have the DVDs of this trilogy. I ain't joking around. This is like one of my favorites. One year for Halloween, me and Tom, we dressed up like Marty and Doc. That's
Nice.
Tom and I as Marty and Doc.
That's great.
Yeah. So, big fan.
Big fan.
During season 1, this could have easily been picked for me for either comfort or repeat watch.
All right, well, then we will formally introduce Back to the Future, directed by Robert Zemeckis, released July 3rd, 1985, rated PG, and Steven Spielberg shows up as an executive producer.
Have you ever thought about traveling back in time? What would you do? Who would you see? What if you traveled back 30 years on accident and inadvertently got in the way of your parents falling in love? That is exactly the situation Marty finds himself in after his friend, Doc Brown, shows him his time-traveling DeLorean. Now, Marty needs to find younger Doc, get the sparks to McFly between his should-be parents, and get back to the future.
I really like this intro.
Thanks, buddy!
So you've already talked a little bit about how much you rewatch this. I feel like my origin stories are always so boring because it's all similar, but I watched this on TV. I caught it on cable all the time. And honestly, for a while, I think I would have not been able to tell you. I think like the first one and the second one sort of mashed up in my brain because I Same thing with The Breakfast Club. I would catch them at different times. They were also edited for television. And, cable, you'd like turn it on, you're in the middle of the movie, and you're like, okay. And then if you just let it run while you're doing something else, they probably show the second one and the third one. And,
Right.
you know, my attention span's in and out, whatever. Obviously, at some point, I sat down and watched them all the way through. You know what? I'm not 100% sure I've ever seen the third one. I
Were
think I
they in the
have.
Wild West? Like that
Right,
was.
I know. I might not have watched that one all the way through that like wasn't on television.
Okay.
But I know I've seen the first and second ones.
I mean, I could see why if you caught them on cable, that you would kind of get them crisscross in your head because not that I want to talk too much about two, but two goes forward and then backwards and then middle as far as time traveling goes. So like, yeah, you're seeing a lot of 1955 again. But it's nice to hear that someone else besides me with my Ghostbusters mashed up two movies and thought they were... See, I had the opposite problem. You thought 1 and 2 might have been the same movie. I thought Ghostbusters 1 and 2 somehow birthed a third one. And I don't know how that happens.
Memories fade and cable and commercial. It's all... We were watching movies all chopped up. It made no sense.
Yeah. I think my first time seeing it might have been on TV. I might have caught parts of it on TBS or something and showed interest. And then I don't remember where or how the VHSs came to my possession. I'm obviously, if I was so young, someone had to buy them for me. Mm. But yeah, it was about the same time I was introduced to Star Wars. And I think also shortly after Indiana Jones. I remember like really watching all 9 of those VHSs a lot as a kid. I wore those tapes out.
Yeah, now that I'm trying to remember what VHS we actually owned, and I think it was mostly Disney movies.
Oh, yeah.
The clamshell?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
From the vault.
Yes, from the vault. Mm-hmm. Much like Return to Oz, some could have stayed. So we have a lot to discuss when it comes to Back to the Future. There is a lot of background in its production, so we're going to dive right in, if that's cool with you.
Let's go.
All right. So Robert Zemeckis, our co-writer and our director, he originally wrote the script in 1980 with his friend Bob Gale. They actually worked together a lot. Unfortunately, their last 3 films were failures at the box office. They had co-written a movie called I Want to Hold Your Hand that came out in 1978, literally about like a group of friends trying to go see the Beatles. They co-wrote the movie 1941, directed by Steven Spielberg, came out in 1979. They also co-wrote Used Cars, which came out in 1980, starring Kurt Russell. The other 2 that were not directed by Spielberg, he was an executive producer on them. So they had this close working relationship with Spielberg already. Okay, so sometime after Used Cars came out in 1980, Bob Gale was at his parents' house and he was looking through his dad's old high school yearbooks. And he just had this thought of, would I be friends with my dad if I met him when he was a teenager, when we were both teenagers? And he started thinking about time travel and traveling back to a time when he could have met his parents when they were younger. He ran this story by Robert Zemeckis. And I guess Robert Zemeckis started thinking about how his mom's stories of her teenage years contradicted each other sometimes. So that all kind of got roped into them writing this script. They pitched it to Columbia in 1980. Head of the studio at the time was a guy named Frank Price. He had really liked the movie Used Cars. I don't know if anyone else had. So he was really excited to work with them again. And he told them to do some rewrites, show him a second draft of the script. And unfortunately for them, Frank Price at Columbia felt that their script was not raunchy enough to appeal to what was popular with audiences at the time. We have heard this over and over again this season. He wanted something like Porky's, like Animal House, like Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
So I am a little surprised that Spielberg had or was related to 3 not so great films.
Yeah, I was trying to remember where his career was at this point because 1980, I know Jaws had come out already,
Yeah,
and Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
I believe so. These are both, late 70s, right?
Right. I guess I was trying to think of what was his power in Hollywood to get things made. Do you know what I mean? Like slapping
Yeah.
his name on something to get it made. How powerful was he at this point? Because we will see he's very instrumental in getting this made as well.
I guess when you work as hard as Steven does, if you make
Hmm.
100 movies a year, if three of them are bad, I guess you're doing okay.
I mean, it's not a bad way to look at it.
Yeah. And he was only EP on two of them, so I mean, he still. I'm surprised it didn't tarnish his name, but I think maybe times are different then than it is now. You make one bad movie now, and like you're out of work for 5 years.
Well, we'll get into this a little bit more, but Robert Zemeckis at least was coming off of three flops.
Yeah. And then I guess the other point I want to make, I don't understand this. Like every movie has to be raunchy.
I'm confused about it as well. I know we talked a little bit about National Lampoon back in the Breakfast Club episode. That was raunchy humor. And then obviously, National Lampoon did Animal House. That was raunchy. But yeah, we keep hearing everyone being like, no, I just want Porky's. Make it like Porky's. And they
And I
didn't think
have
anything could succeed.
right. I have nothing against that. I just am confused that if every movie is like that, then how do those movies stick out against other comedies?
Exactly.
If everyone makes a Porky's, then nothing's going to be unique and funny.
Well, and to that thought, too, that would mean that we're only interested in making R rated comedies.
Listen, Steven's involved, so it could be raunchy and be like a G for all I know.
He'll argue them down.
Oh, yeah. That was his power in Hollywood. He was like really a lawyer. He just was a lawyer with a camera.
So Zemeckis is coming off of directing Used Cars, which again did not do well. But Frank Price is a fan, but Frank Price doesn't like how not raunchy Back to the Future is.
Hmm, hmm.
So the script went into something they call turnaround, which is where Columbia still had the rights to the script, but they were offering it to other studios to bid on, like sort of acknowledging they were not going to move forward with it.
Okay.
According to various interviews with Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis, Back to the Future was turned down at least 40 times by other studios.
I like that number. Perfect for this season.
Yes, I know sometimes you don't know what you have until it's there. Again, this is the same story we hear over and over again. Like, no one wants to do this. It'll never work. This is horrible. Who's going to bother watching this? And then, 40th
Yeah.
anniversary. Yeah, sometimes I just wonder what people's instincts are. These studio heads, these people greenlighting things. Because, I mean, if this had been just another Porky's, would anyone be talking about it still?
I feel like we were only talking about Porky's because in 1985 people were talking about Porky's.
I know, I was just about to say, is anyone even really still talking about Porky's?
We are, unfortunately, but
Should have done a episode about Porky's because apparently it was very culturally significant. So, most of the studios turning it down cited that other time travel films of this time, such as The Final Countdown, which came out in 1980, and Time Bandits in 1981, had failed. They also felt that this concept would not appeal to the youth at the time. Particularly, they were labeling them as rebellious young people. I'm a little confused by this characterization because I feel like in St. Elmo's Fire, we saw everyone was very Reagan-esque.
right.
Like very, very yuppie, upwardly mobile young people. I'm not really sure how rebellious the youth of the 1980s were.
The youths.
The youths, I know.
Are they saying that the viewer, like the audience, was rebellious, or Marty was too rebellious?
That these rebellious youths of the 1980s would not be interested in wholesome Marty McFly or wholesome 1950s. I don't know which, but
Hmm. Got it.
they also decided to pitch it to Disney. There was someone in particular had suggested, hey, it's a more family friendly, not raunchy kind of movie. So why don't you pitch it to Disney? And Disney was like, there's an incestuous situation with him and his mom. Are you crazy? This will ruin us. So they said no.
Yeah, fair enough.
So they're caught between being not Porky's and also
Not
weird
Disney.
relationship with him and his mom. Yeah. Okay, the one supporter they had through all of this was Steven Spielberg. Unfortunately, Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis were concerned because he had been involved with literally all of their previous projects. They were worried that they would start to be seen as just kind of Steven Spielberg's pet project, like people who could only get work because Steven Spielberg threw some work at them. And then also they didn't have any really great box office underneath them either to prove they could have a hit movie.
Yeah, so very much like this film being caught between two different places. That's where they find themselves. We don't want Steven's help. God damn it, we need Steven's help.
But they're also obviously terrified of having another box office bomb because it's not looking great for either of their careers. Somewhere in the midst of all this, Robert Zemeckis was offered the movie Romancing the Stone to direct. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. I personally enjoy it very much.
I don't remember. I know of it. And if I did, it's probably on cable.
Mm-hmm. Kathleen Turner is a romance novel author who kind of gets, I believe it's her sister who gets kidnapped in Colombia, and she has to go save her. She runs into Michael Douglas, who is kind of the stereotypical romance novel hero of her dreams, and they go on this adventure together. Danny DeVito's also in it. It's silly and it's fun and it's very 80s, but it was a box office hit. So
Yay.
Suddenly Robert Zemeckis is looking good. He had some credibility behind him. He showed he could actually not just make a movie that didn't bomb, but this was a hit. So
Those are very important differentials. Yeah.
the problem here is that Zemeckis apparently decided to have a grudge against every studio that had rejected Back to the Future.
So all 40 of them.
Which is like all of them, right?
There's more grudges than there are studios at this point.
Yes.
Oh, God.
Okay, so he still went back to Spielberg because Spielberg had set up his own production company at this point, Amblin Entertainment. I guess they were under the umbrella of Universal Pictures. Turns out their old friend Frank Price, who initially was at Columbia, initially liked the script, turned it down because of not Porky's. He had moved to Universal. So they had Spielberg, they had Frank Price in their corner. New problem, Spielberg allegedly did not like Frank Price because Frank Price had said no to E.T.,
Oh, my God.
which had come out in 1982. So Steven Spielberg said, okay, if I help you make this movie, under the Universal umbrella with Amblin Entertainment, Frank Price has to have minimal involvement because I don't like him.
Okay.
Because he did not believe in E.T.
Got it.
Okay.
Question.
Yes.
I get these grudges. I too can be spiteful sometimes, but at this scenario, like Steven and Zemeckis now, they have the carrot to dangle, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Price, not on a boo boo. E.T. did good. It's almost like, yeah, let him
Exactly.
be a part of the picture. Let me rub it in his face.
Yeah, that's what I thought too, especially with Spielberg being upset about E.T. not getting greenlit. I am sure, given all the stories we uncover with this podcast, I'm sure studios have passed up many, many movies that went on to become not just box office successes, but huge hits. And are you gonna not work with any, like Zemeckis coming out being like, I'm mad at everyone that said no to my script. Well, I could sort of understand it when you didn't have a hit under your belt too.
Right.
And we're talking about people playing around with millions of dollars. I feel like if I was even in this situation to have meetings with the major studios, like you'd be in a pretty privileged position. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, if any of these studios want to reject any script I might write in the future, I mean, I'm here for it. We'll just have as long as we have a sit down or a Zoom conversation about it and just get my face out there. Why not? I promise I won't hold any grudges.
But how similar is it to Porky's?
You know what? It's actually Porky's 5, still porking around.
Oh my
I
God.
don't know if that actually exists yet.
I was thinking while I was doing this research, like, I know I've seen Porky's at least once. I don't really remember much about it.
Yeah, same.
The cultural touchstone that is Porky's. I love how, like, the research for every episode takes us in these different directions, but I did not expect this entire season to take us in the direction of Porky's.
Hey, didn't talk about that with Lady Hawk. We talked about middle-aged France. Get a whole fucking history lesson there.
That's true. Okay, so our next problem. Remember how the script to Back to the Future was technically still owned by Columbia? They had allowed other studios to bid on it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There was a man named Guy McElwain who was now head of Columbia. He still technically owned Back to the Future. However, he was developing a movie called Big Trouble, which ended up coming out in 1986. It was a satire of Double Indemnity. For anyone who does not know, it's a classic noir film that came out in 1944. Barbara Stanwyck, who also is in the movie that they are showing in 1955 Back to the Future, ironically.
Oh.
Classic movie. Highly recommended, personally. It was owned by Universal. So these two had to make a deal where they would switch the rights to Double Indemnity and Back to the Future. I don't know why someone would greenlight a satire of a really like a really big classic movie when you didn't even own the rights and you knew this would be a problem, but like
Right.
That's fine, whatever. Obviously, we're all still talking about the movie Big Trouble in 2026, so it's fine.
It's crazy too, thinking like how big the classic movie is, right? Like we're calling it a classic movie, and they're doing this basically like a baseball card trading deal for something that 40 studios passed on that might not work.
Exactly.
So that's ballsy.
Yeah, I don't know if that's just how much they believed in this movie Big Trouble. For those who are unaware, Double Indemnity, it's Billy Wilder. We talked about him when we talked about The Apartment. Screenplay by Raymond Chandler, who also did a lot of classic noirs and noir novels. I said Barbara Stanwyck, who else? And Fred McMurray, Edward G. Robinson. It's a classic.
Right, but so they might have believed in Big Trouble, but they didn't have the rights. So Universal did. So I'm saying is Universal took a huge risk giving up that IP to trade for that script that Columbia owned. I mean, obviously it worked out.
Okay, I see what you're saying. I guess to me, I was thinking the risk was even trying to remake Double Indemnity.
Well, they were going to do it anyways, obviously. So, but like to get the right to be able to, they're getting that IP now and something that might flop. Obviously, it did not. We're talking about it today, but that's crazy to me.
So we've cleared a few hurdles. Next problem. A man named Sidney Sheinberg was now president of Universal, or he was a bigwig at Universal. I don't really know what happened to our friend Fred Price, but
Steven got him fired.
Maybe. So Sheinberg had installed himself as chief executive to oversee Universal's involvement in Back to the Future because he had concerns. So he started suggesting changes to the film, including he wanted to change the title to Spaceman from Pluto.
Okay. That's a whole nother like vibe there, but sure.
Exactly. A whole different connotation of what this movie's about, right? He felt that Back to the Future would not resonate with audiences, which again, we keep hearing these things. The audiences aren't going to like this. They're not going to like that. I don't know where anyone is getting their market research from, but this is where we are.
Maybe they didn't do market research in 1985.
I feel like they didn't. But Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale didn't know what to do with this because they were finally getting their script made. They didn't want to piss anyone off. So they were like, Steven Spielberg, please help. How do we say no to this in a polite way? Steven Spielberg sent Sheinberg a memo that said, "Hi, Sid. Thanks for your most humorous memo. We all got a big laugh out of it. Keep 'em coming." Because he knew that good old Sidney Sheinberg would be too embarrassed to admit that this suggestion was actually serious after receiving that memo from Spielberg.
Spielberg, you sly motherfucker.
Mm-hmm. For his part, Sidney Sheinberg has called this story, quote, bullshit.
Oh.
But
maybe not so sly. I don't know. Also, he could be embarrassed still.
He could still be embarrassed, yes. He also wanted to change the name of Marty's mother to Lorraine. Her name was originally Meg in the original script. This was as tribute to his wife, Lorraine Gary, who had played Ellen Brody in Jaws.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. She was also in 1941 and in Car Wash. So I don't know if that made it more palatable to Zemeckis and Bob Gale that they kind of knew her. Just kind of weird that these bigwigs come in and they're like, change this random thing that doesn't necessarily need to be changed because I like my wife.
Yeah. You let the people in power do a power play to make them happy. It's like you either change Meg to Lorraine or you change Back to the Future to Spaceman from Pluto. And now we're making Ed Wood film, so who knows?
Exactly, right. His final big suggestion, originally there was no dog named Einstein. It was a chimpanzee named Shemp.
Okay.
Yeah. Isn't Shemp the name of, like, George of the Jungle's pal?
Oh, I don't know. So one of the Stooges.
Oh, yeah. But Sidney Sheinberg, in all his wisdom, said that movies with chimps never do well.
Okay. Random statement.
Yeah. He said people like dogs.
People do like dogs. I like dogs.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I wouldn't be upset either way. I like Einstein, but Doc is crazy and eccentric, so if he had a chimp, that would make sense. Also, I don't know. I don't know if he has time for that kind of stuff.
Right. I do think it would definitely change the vibe, but it wouldn't be because Doc is already so weird. Like, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I personally like Einstein, but we'll get into it. Okay, so third draft of the film, with all these changes, was finished in July 1984. At this point, they apparently had to update some of the jokes because they had become obsolete in the years between 1980 and getting this greenlit. We'll get into a few of those. Robert Zemeckis apparently always wanted Michael J. Fox for the lead role, based on seeing him in Family Ties. I didn't realize at the time it was actually really unheard of for actors to cross over from TV to movies.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. So there was some resistance to this because he really was only famous for being on a TV show. Spielberg asked the producer of Family Ties, a man named Gary David Goldberg, to have Michael J. Fox read the script. However, Gary David Goldberg was concerned that Family Ties would fall apart if Michael J. Fox took this role because Meredith Baxter, who was also on Family Ties, was already gone on maternity leave, and he felt like losing two of his big stars would just damage the show too much. So he never showed Michael J. Fox the script to Back to the Future.
Nice. Very nice.
Mm-hmm. While this is going on, other actors considered for Marty McFly, I assume by the studio, because Zemeckis was pretty clear he always wanted Michael J. Fox. But other actors considered Johnny Depp, Ralph Macchio, John Cusack, Charlie Sheen, John Cryer, Ben Stiller, Robert Downey Jr., and Matthew Modine.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Refresh my... John Cryer.
From, well, you probably know him from 2.5 Men now.
Ah.
John Cryer was Ducky in Pretty in Pink.
What about Matthew Modine?
He was sort of on the borders of Brat Pack when that... Do you know what I mean? When that article came out and they were like, Matthew Broderick, Matthew Modine was the other Matthew. that were
Okay.
sort of edging into the Brat Pack,
I have to look
according
him
to
up.
that.
Oh god, he looks like Crispin Glover.
Yeah, I could see that.
I know him from Stranger Things, but yeah. Hey, give
Matthew
me a
Modine was in Full Metal
jacket.
Jacket.
Yep.
Hmm.
Wow. That's. Could you imagine? Could you imagine Matthew Modine and Crispin Glover? Like, I mean, it would kind of work because they're playing father and son, but they
Yeah,
look a lot alike.
they do.
It's so fucking funny. Yeah, I don't like that. Out of all these people, I mean, I could maybe see a young Robert Downey, but I think John Cusack sticks out the most. It's that earnestness in the character that I think would work.
Yeah.
Charlie Sheen, maybe not so much, but I think Emilio Estevez would work as well.
I was just going to say that, yeah.
Hmm.
The earnestness. Billy Zane also auditioned for the role of Marty. He ended up going on to play one of Biff's gang. I never realized he was in this.
I'm going to jump 20 pages down as far as when we were watching the film, letting the credits roll and taking more notes, and I saw Billy Zane's name up there, and I said, what?
Yeah.
He plays Match.
Hmm.
That's his name. He's just in the background, presumably with the match in his teeth, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. I pretty much, when I think of Billy Zane, I just think of Titanic.
Yes.
And then specifically for me, the meme from Titanic where he's getting on the lifeboat and he's like, I have a child, because I use that a lot because I do have a child.
That's fair.
Specifically when like Spotify Wrapped comes out and you have to explain your Spotify Wrapped as a parent. You're like, I have a child. Yeah. C. Thomas Howell was the front runner for a little while. Maybe this was news to Robert Zemeckis. I don't know. But he was Tyler in E.T. and Ponyboy in The Outsiders.
Nice.
I did not recognize his name at first. So our good friend Sidney Sheinberg preferred an actor named Eric Stoltz to play Marty. This was because of the movie Mask. Also came out in 1985, but Eric Stoltz was the lead. I can never remember what the condition is that his character has in Mask, but he has a facial deformity. I remember like Cher is his mom.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, you know what I'm talking about. All right.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. And I guess the start date was coming up on production, so Robert Zemeckis just was like, all right, Eric Stoltz, fine. I'm really curious during all this if they ever wondered why they never heard back from Michael J. Fox.
Right.
Because they didn't even hear a no, because he didn't even know it existed, you know?
That's insane to me.
Mm-hmm. So they cast Eric Stoltz. Sidney Sheinberg promised that if for some reason this didn't work out, almost like he knew, that they could do reshoots. The character of Marty McFly, the name Marty came from a production assistant on Used Cars. And then Zemeckis just suggested the last name McFly because it sounded all American.
Sure.
Which is weird because they definitely call his dad like an Irish something when they see him in the malt
In
shop.
the past.
Yeah. But anyway, so principal photography began in November 1984. Pretty quickly, Robert Zemeckis, and it sounds like literally everyone else, realized that Eric Stoltz was not right for the part. We will get into more of that story as we move along. But this whole incident where they had to recast Marty McFly and reshoot things that Eric Stoltz had been in added $4 million to their budget and made their production schedule even more tight.
Well, of course, yeah.
Of course, yeah.
Redoing all the work.
Yes. For Doc Brown, the studio was looking at Jeff Goldblum, John Lithgow, Dudley Moore, Robin Williams, John Cleese, Mandy Patinkin, Gene Hackman, and James Woods.
That is an interesting group.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like for me, well, I mean, a lot of these could work, but my heart right now is saying John Cleese is my favorite in this group right now.
Yeah. I think I'm also trying to remember like how old these actors were at this point too, because I see Doc as an old man. Like, I'm sure the hair, Christopher Lloyd's hair does not help.
Right.
I'd be kind of interested to see how Jeff Goldblum or Mandy Patinkin would have handled this, personally.
Yeah. I mean, or like Gene Hackman or James Woods. Because James Woods is like, I mean, later he did softer roles,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like at the time he was very serious and very scary.
I just think of James Woods as Hades,
Mm-hmm.
so that's
I
all I
knew,
can think.
I knew you were gonna say that.
Yeah. He's just gonna creep around and convince Marty McFly to go back to the future in some sinister kind of way.
Sure, yeah.
So one of the producers was really gunning for John Lithgow for some reason, but John Lithgow turned it down. So then I don't know if that was their last shot that they had in mind, but it's like they finally agreed to offer it to Christopher Lloyd. But then Christopher Lloyd turned it down. Somehow a friend convinced him to take the role. I couldn't find any more information about that, but I did want to note, not sure about when Eric Stoltz was playing Marty, but once Michael J. Fox was cast, Christopher Lloyd decided to play Doc as kind of hunched because he's 6'1" and Michael J. Fox is 5'5". I never really noticed it. He is, hunched in the movie, but it just kind of seemed like his character. I don't know.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I didn't think it was a height differential because, movie magic,
That too, movie
you could
magic.
make him look taller or shorter. Yeah, what you're saying, I feel like it was part of his character.
Yeah. Because he kind of he talks to you really close to your face. And so, of course, he would have to hunch down. I don't know. For the character of Lorraine, Robert Zemeckis saw Leah Thompson while he was researching Eric Stoltz. They did a movie together called The Wildlife, which came out in 1984. Cameron Crowe was the screenwriter. I always forget that Cameron Crowe was working at this time too, along with people like John Hughes, because I think of Cameron Crowe becoming more of a name like a little later on,
Yeah.
like almost famous and whatnot. But Zemeckis saw her in The Wildlife with Eric Stoltz, cast her. So for a while, she was working with her friend Eric on this movie, and maybe did not love when she suddenly had to work with someone else after her friend was fired.
Sure. Probably
Yeah.
not, but, that's part of the gig, I suppose.
Okay, for George. I could not find too much about why Crispin Glover was cast, but apparently he was very difficult to work with. Bob Gale in particular said Crispin Glover was nuts, and they were very okay with not working with him again after this. Robert Zemeckis kept telling him to be more restrained in his movements, and he was really unhappy with his performance in the movie, actually. It's funny because Crispin Glover, I think he said he was in his early 20s in this movie. I saw an interview with him where he said that he was kind of doing whatever he felt the character would have done, but then he sort of started taking Robert Zemeckis' advice a little bit more after they got rid of Eric Stoltz, because he was like, oh my God, they fired the lead. Anything could happen, so I better shape up.
Yeah.
But apparently he refused to follow blocking, which is, where the camera assumes you're going to stand so they can get the shot they need. So the camera crew is extremely frustrated with him as well. If you watch the performance again, knowing this, I think all the weird movements and the weird way he would walk and kind of zigzag through scenes, I kind of understand what they were saying. But apparently this was all Crispin Glover, just of his own accord.
I feel like I would straighten up a little bit if they fired the lead. Mm-hmm. But maybe also at the same time, obviously at the same time, it seems like Zemeckis just didn't want to have to reshoot some more. So all right, we're stuck with Crispin Glover being nuts.
That's a good point. Crispin Glover also lost his voice during filming. I couldn't find anything more about this, but he ended up having to dub some of his lines in post-production. The character of Biff Tannen. I don't exactly have a casting story, but the name was taken from a producer named Ned Tannen because allegedly Bob Gale and Zemeckis didn't like him, and he was, quote, unpleasant to them during a script meeting for I Want to Hold Your Hand. Ned Tannen, we talked about him, I believe it was last episode. He was a producer on The Breakfast Club and St. Elmo's Fire. A lot of the younger actors really liked him because they felt like he took them under his wing. And I think Ali Sheedy in particular said he really helped them navigate like fame in Hollywood and stuff at a young age. So interesting, but that is why Biff's last name is Tannen.
Interesting.
Yep. Supposedly, allegedly. Jennifer, it was Marty's girlfriend. Melora Hardin originally had the role. You will know her as Jan from The Office. Melora Hardin was Jennifer when Eric Stoltz was Marty. After Eric was fired, apparently Robert Zemeckis pulled the crew, and the women working on the movie overwhelmingly said that Jennifer could not be taller than Marty, which Melora Hardin was taller than Michael J. Fox, so they fired her too.
Isn't the actress we get also taller than Marty?
She's about the same height.
Okay. Also, who cares? Again,
Also, who cares? I know.
it's movie magic. You can put them on an apple crate.
Exactly.
Or, the offset shit. Whatever. We don't have to go into it. But, you can make it work.
Yep.
People do it all the time. Look at Tom Cruise's career.
No, right?
It's okay, man. It's movie magic.
Yep. Claudia Wells, who goes on to play Jennifer, she originally turned down the role because she was attached to a TV show called Off the Rack. Kira Sedgwick was considered for Jennifer. And then somewhere in all this, Claudia's TV show got canceled. The role of Jennifer was still open. So we've solved that problem.
That's very convenient.
Yes. So, filming, like I said, started November 1984, beginning with Eric Stoltz as Marty. It was originally supposed to wrap up in February 1985, but they had this whole recast. So it ended up being November 84 to April 1985.
Ooh.
And then the movie came out 4th of July weekend, so you can see how tight we're talking.
That is insane.
Yes. The budget was originally $14 million. I believe the final budget was $19 million after the recast. Mostly shot at the Universal Studios lot in California. There was some background I read where the studio was like, this is a mess and taking too much time. There's no way we're going to have time to build all these 1955 sets, so we have to do it on the lot, which that's why you have a lot, I assume, for these reasons.
Is that why they filmed on the same lot of Gremlins?
Maybe.
Because it took me that many years on the last season's Gremlin rewatch where I was like, this looks familiar. And you pointed out I was correct. So I felt pretty happy about that.
I will say there was something about there not being enough time to dress up a random town to make it look like the 1950s. Editing had to happen at the same time as filming due to the schedule being so tight. This was kind of how Robert Zemeckis came to the conclusion that Eric Stoltz was not working in the role of Marty. He went to watch some of the edited footage in late December 1984 and was like, this is just not working. Eric Stoltz, from what I understand, was very into method acting, and he was playing Marty as very serious, intense, and Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis saw Marty as being more comedic and having screwball energy, and we obviously see that with Michael J. Fox's performance, right? This is very much a comedy.
It's no Porky's, but yeah.
Yeah, it's no Porky's. Not only did Robert Zemeckis realize this was not working because of how Stoltz was playing it, he was really bothering the rest of the cast and crew. They all felt he was super intense, and a lot of this had to do with the method acting, with him staying in character. Thomas F. Wilson, who plays Biff, really got into it with him because there is, I think it's the scene at the school where Marty shoves Biff, like the first time he really stands up to Biff. Because Eric Stoltz was into method acting, he did not believe in pretending, so he was really shoving Biff with his full strength every time they did this take, to the point where the actor had bruises, and he was, telling Eric Stoltz to kind of take it easy and lay off, and Eric Stoltz would not respond to you unless you referred to him as Marty, because that's what we're doing here, and It was a whole thing. So apparently, there was one scene where the actor playing Biff was really excited to get back at him because it's like he hits Marty at some point.
Yeah.
Okay. And he was like, well, okay, so this guy keeps shoving me for real. I'm going to punch him for real because that's what he deserves, but he never got his chance because then he was recast.
Damn.
Yeah, I know.
I was going to say, too, because I don't know how much bigger Stoltz is than Fox. But I'm assuming he's not bigger than Tom Wilson. And
I would assume, right?
I would love to see big old Biff get some revenge.
Yeah. So once this all, the light bulb moment for Robert Zemeckis happened, he went to Spielberg and he was like, we need to replace him. But Spielberg said that they needed to have the replacement in place before they fired Eric Stoltz, or the production might be canceled as a whole. So Zemeckis and the producers asked our good friend Sheinberg for permission to do whatever they could to accommodate Michael J. Fox's schedule with Family Ties. Spielberg called up Gary David Goldberg, the producer of Family Ties, and was like, what the heck ever happened with Michael J. Fox? What's up? He admitted that he had never shown Michael J. Fox the script. I don't know why I have exact dates for this. This is like, I don't know. It's almost like we're talking about some overthrown government here. But on January 3rd, 1985, Goldberg tells Michael J. Fox that I have this script for Back to the Future that I never showed you, and the filmmakers want to know if you're interested. At the same time, Goldberg felt better about this because Meredith Baxter was back on the show, and they felt like they could be more flexible with Michael J. Fox's character as long as Family Ties was still his priority. Michael J. Fox said yes without apparently reading the script.
Interesting. Well,
yeah.
He clearly wanted to advance his career. And if it was me, I would do it just to be a little bit of that spitefulness I mentioned earlier. Like, you didn't show me this opportunity.
Yes.
You're lucky I'm coming back to this show.
I would, especially coming from Steven Spielberg. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Because that's probably a big reason why he was just like, yes, I will do this.
Mm-hmm.
So, because, they had to keep moving forward with production, knowing Eric Stoltz was going to be replaced, but could not say anything until they had secured Michael J. Fox, they just kept filming. And no one except, I think, Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis knew that Eric Stoltz was going to be replaced. However...
So wait. What were they still filming? Like, were they still filming Eric's scenes? Or like, Eric, you got a couple days off. We're going to do all this other stuff that we don't need our main guy in right now.
They would film whatever was on schedule, but cast and crew started to notice that they wouldn't really be doing close-ups of Marty anymore.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Like if it was a scene where he's talking to Doc, they do the long shots, they do close-ups of Doc, but they wouldn't be concerned about getting coverage from Marty's character. Like, again, very slowly people started to notice this, and they'd be like, oh, don't you want this close-up of Marty? And they'd be like, nope, move on, we're good. So basically, by January 10th, 1985, when Robert Zemeckis finally tells Eric Stoltz he is fired, they later announced it to the cast and crew, and everyone's like, well, yeah, we kind of figured something was up because you were being all weird about the filming. There was also something where they had told the studio not to tear down the 1950s set, even though on their filming log, they were done with it. So they really were keeping this under wraps from most people. So there were full scenes that they just fully reshot, but anything where they could get away with close-ups of the other actor, they would still film those scenes and just not really worry so much about Marty.
Yeah, makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So Robert Zemeckis said this meeting when he fired Eric Stoltz was, quote, the hardest meeting I've ever had in my life, and it was all my fault. I broke Stoltz's heart. Eric Stoltz reportedly, after this all happened, was, gathering his things and was overheard telling his makeup artist that he was not a comedian and didn't understand why he was cast in the first place. Which, fair. If this was supposed to be a more comedic screwball role, you'd think that would have been communicated better beforehand anyway.
Also, did he not read the script?
That too.
See, I hear like comedic screwball role, and I feel like that's overplaying that a little bit. I feel Michael J. Fox, at least through his performance, it's like he's just a kid. Like he literally is like a 17-year-old kid, and I feel like he doesn't need to be that serious. I wouldn't say he's like that comedic. He is very funny in the
Mm-hmm.
role, but not like when you say I'm not a comedian or I'm not a comic, I'm not funny. It's like, yeah, he does things that are funny because they're so subtle. He's more like lighthearted.
Yeah, I was just gonna say there's a definitely a lightness to how he
Yeah,
plays it, and it works with the whole characterization of him being a skateboarder, kind of
a slacker.
goofing, yeah, being a slacker apparently. So, after they officially fired Eric Stoltz, they told the principal cast and the rest of the crew that a lot of the film was going to be reshot. And according to, I believe it was Bob Gale, everyone was surprised because the crew saw this as mostly good news because everyone could see this wasn't working with Eric Stoltz in it. One of the producers took it upon himself to tell Christopher Lloyd that they were going to be replacing Eric Stoltz in the movie. And he said, Christopher Lloyd looked at me and said, "Well, who's Eric?" And this producer said, "Marty." And Christopher Lloyd said, "Oh, I thought his name was Marty." And this producer said, "To this day, I don't know if he was pulling my leg or not, because the other issue is that Eric Stoltz stayed in character the whole time, so everyone had to refer to him as Marty."
Eric Stoltz was
So,
trying to be like De Niro, I guess.
yes, that's exactly what Leah Thompson had said, that this generation of actors, everyone was trying to be like De Niro, Pacino, like method acting. And with Christopher Lloyd, he was asked about this story later, and he said he couldn't remember this exchange at all. But the producer was like, I don't know if he was just trying to like lighten the mood or if he really was like, oh, I thought this guy was named Marty. Because apparently Eric Stoltz would like separate himself from the rest of the cast and crew, like go eat lunch on his own, that sort of thing. And then along with the method acting, no one really knew who he was as a person.
Right.
So in addition to filming scenes where he's having dialogue with different characters, like I said, they would kind of focus on filming the other characters. They had to reshoot everything involving Marty and the DeLorean. They had already filmed Eric Stoltz as Marty traveling to 1955, the car breaking down as he gets ready to return to 1985, and then when he finally does return to 1985. So there were some really big scenes that they had
Oh
to
yeah.
redo.
Yeah.
So, like we already said, filming fell behind schedule. 34 days of filming were kind of lost at this point. The rehiring added $3.5 to $4 million to the budget, and then they also still had to pay Eric Stoltz his full salary. Universal was concerned that their marketing team had to manage any negative publicity that could come from a movie replacing its main star, which I do understand there was more that was reported at this time about this movie's being made and this movie's coming out soon, because I've seen this when I've been looking up old newspaper articles. They put a
Yeah.
lot of pre-release articles out in the news to start getting word of mouth out. Michael J. Fox's first official day of filming was January 15th, 1985. The first scene he filmed was when he and Lorraine first meet in her bedroom. This rolled into a little bit of what I said Leah Thompson was saying about she was conflicted because Eric Stoltz was a friend of hers, and then also Michael J. Fox coming from television that just was unheard of at the time, apparently. So she was skeptical. She did say later that he brought a totally different energy and it's probably what the movie needed, and that also he was a lot more friendly and got along more with the cast and crew. She described Eric Stoltz as her friend, but also that he obviously had this certain method of doing things, and she understood it rubbed some people the wrong way.
Sure. So I'm kind of now curious about behind the scenes on Mask. Like, did he just leave all the prosthetics on the whole time?
That was my question, yes.
Also, I keep forgetting he was in that movie. I don't think I've ever seen that movie, or at least not. No, I don't think I did. But I only know Eric Stoltz as being the guy who got fired from Marty McFly. I don't know what else he has done. No offense to Mr. Eric Stoltz. So maybe just being too serious on set isn't the best sometimes.
He was in Pulp Fiction. He was Lance in Pulp Fiction.
Really?
I mean, he had a steady career, maybe nothing that was like a huge breakout role.
That'd be
He
hilarious.
was Ethan and Jerry Maguire. I don't know what character that is, but apparently he worked with Zemeckis again.
There you go.
Okay, anyway, so poor Michael J. Fox, though, was still doing Family Ties during this. So he would film Family Ties during the day and then in the evening go to the set of Back to the Future. Weekends were worse, apparently, because Family Ties filmed in front of a live audience on the weekends.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I forgot about TV shows being filmed in front of a live audience at this time.
Yeah, that totally just took me back, and also was like, oh god, this poor guy's schedule.
So sometimes he would go in and film scenes alone, which made sense since we already said some of these scenes were already filmed with Eric Stoltz and they already had like the close ups for the other actors. Sometimes other cast would film their scenes with a stand in as Marty. Drivers that were hired to take Michael J. Fox like to and from each set and then home at the end of the night said that sometimes they would be carrying him into his house to sleep.
God damn.
Which also, people talk about Michael J. Fox being short all the time. Like, I'm just imagining, like,
Yeah.
little baby Michael J. Fox. Apparently, he fell asleep a lot on set. He would be good and ready to go anytime there was a take. And then when that was done and he'd go back to his waiting area, he would fall asleep. He would ad-lib some lines because he would just forget his lines, or he would get confused about which set he was actually on because he was probably delirious at this point. He would be looking for different props that existed for the other set he was supposed to be on. Like, there was a story about him filming or rehearsing for Family Ties and he was trying to find the camcorder or the skateboard, and then he's like, nope, that's the other one.
Jeez.
Yeah. So he did say a lot of this was, first of all, he said it was exhausting but worth it. But he also said, like, maybe just because he was young, he was able to keep up with it more. He also had to learn choreographed skateboard scenes, which I never thought of because, like, that is technically a stunt anytime you're moving, right? So they have to be extra cautious for insurance and safety reasons. He also had to learn how to mimic playing the guitar, like looking good enough so they could, pretend like these finger motions were real.
Right.
Right.
I think both of those pay off because it feels to me while watching it that Michael J. Fox knows how to skateboard and play guitar.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and it's funny because whenever stuff like that, when, like we talked about this in the fencing for The Princess Bride, obviously, if you're going to spend all your time learning this one skill, you can look really good in a relatively short amount of time. But this is even shorter.
Yeah, and he's double dipping on the other show.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
It's like he's like skateboarding between sets.
I know, that's what I was imagining too. And then being carried off to bed by his like big burly drivers or something.
It was Tom Wilson.
Bob Gale, our co-writer and co-producer, said that the atmosphere on set improved once Michael J. Fox joined the cast. But again, we've already pointed out that everyone kind of saw that the other actor wasn't working. Leah Thompson pointed out specifically that Michael J. Fox would eat his lunch with the cast and crew and like spend more time with them, whereas Eric Stoltz really isolated himself. I thought it was kind of interesting that they also publicly were saying things about how the mood of the whole shoot changed when Eric Stoltz was let go, because a lot of them also took great pains to say things like, he's a great guy, he's a great actor, he was just wrong for the role, or he was cast in the wrong role. But then when you're putting stuff out there like, the crew saw this as good news, or like the whole mood changed, it's like,
yeah.
If I was Eric Stoltz, I'd have a really hard time not taking some offense to that.
I could see some of that. Again, if we're leaning into the comedic aspect of the film, and this is Mr. Serious Pants, yeah, if he's gone, the mood does change, the atmosphere does change. But then to add on top of that, like, well, this guy isolated himself and he hated everybody, and the crew really likes that he's gone, that might be a little much. There's maybe something in between there where it could be publicized, but also not as mean sounding, I guess, as I want to say.
But yeah. Like, it's hard not to feel like they're also kind of taking digs at him, I feel.
Yeah.
Like it feels a little mean.
Yeah. It was so great once he left. He's a great guy.
Yeah. Well, and the only thing I could think too is maybe some of the other more insider details came out decades later when they're doing retrospectives and stuff,
Sure,
which
sure.
does make it a little different, to be fair. Because also, everyone went on to have nice careers, like we're cool.
Mm.
Okay, so I had mentioned a little bit earlier that editing was happening at the same time as filming because of how tight the schedule was. Arthur Schmidt was the editor. He apparently found editing really difficult because he had to imagine where the special effects would be and how they would be looking because of how this was all happening at the same time. And there was no time or budget to re-edit after the special effects were added. So a lot was riding on Arthur Schmidt making the right decisions, but in a very vague, unknowing kind of way.
Yeah.
Yep. So the test screenings were so successful that Universal brought up the release date to July 3rd. I think it was supposed to be the end of summer originally. So it was the difference of like 2 or 3 months. But if they did it earlier in the summer, they could take more advantage of the summer movie season, which was the busiest movie going season, like outside of Christmas, I think. Everyone remember that at this time, the only way to see things is to go to the theaters.
Right.
VHSs were still $80. So obviously this rushed post-production. And the articles I read said some of the special effects were incomplete.
I can kind of see that.
So they specifically mention the hand, like when Marty's kind of disappearing at the dance and the hands in front of his face, that they didn't get to like fix that. And that's one that stuck out to me.
I didn't even think about that one. I was thinking some of the effects when the DeLorean goes to or from, or the photograph, too. Sometimes it looks good, like his siblings fading. Sometimes it looks bad.
They struggled with the photograph a lot. I made some notes as we like moved through the movie, but yeah, that they struggled with the picture a lot. So various articles said they either had 9 weeks to do the special effects or that 9 weeks was the original time span and then it was shortened when they decided to move up the release date. Either way, I don't think anyone thought this was enough time. Industrial Light and Magic were handling the special effects. Ken Ralston was the lead for Back to the Future. He also was working on The Goonies and Cocoon at the same time. He took this on because he felt it required relatively few effects compared to the rest of his workload, but he really wanted to work on the scene of Marty driving the time machine into the nuclear explosion, which is what was originally supposed to happen. He thought that just sounded badass, and he wanted to be the one to make it happen.
I mean, why not, right?
Apparently, they were working on Back to the Future right up to the moment where it had to be handed over to print the reels to go out to theaters.
Jesus.
Yep. We have another famous hit song, Huey Lewis in the News. He was coming off a really successful album called Sports. I am not super familiar with Huey Lewis in the News, so I don't know.
Same.
It sounds like Bob Gale, Robert Zemeckis, and Steven Spielberg really sought him out. They wanted to, well, Robert Zemeckis in particular wanted Huey Lewis and the News to be Marty's favorite band in the script. So that was part of it. And
What? Okay.
Huey Lewis said that he was flattered, but he was hesitant because he said he didn't know how to write film songs. And he specifically did not want to write a song called Back to the Future. Like, just personally, he thought that was silly,
Okay.
I guess. Robert Zemeckis was like, no, you can write any song you want if you just agree to participate because we really want you to be a part of this. So Huey Lewis was like, okay. He submitted the next song he wrote, which was The Power of Love. Kind of conflicting reports because Robert Zemeckis claims that he submitted something else first and it was rejected. But either way, it's kind of funny to me that it's just like, give us whatever you write next. Doesn't have to be written especially for the movie.
Right, yeah. I feel like both things can be true. Not that I was around to work in the studio, but it seems like just hearing that and reading that maybe Zemeckis rejected the first thing he showed him, but the next song he wrote was Power of Love. I don't know. That's how I'm looking at it and hearing it. But again, I have no idea. I'm just reading between the lines at this point.
Mm-hmm. And somehow Zemeckis convinced him to do another song called Back in Time, specifically for the movie.
Right.
Although no real drama with the musicians this time. Just kind of had to be convinced to do it. Okay. So we start our movie. Of course, Steven Spielberg presents.
Our boy is back.
Did he ever leave?
No, I think he's pretty much done every movie we've ever talked about.
Yep. I know I had pointed this out for Gremlins, I believe, but this whole opening, we see more gadgets and inventions. Like, again, to me, this is just such like an 80s trope.
Yeah. So yeah, it reminded me a little bit of the Goonies and the Rube Goldberg machinery effect. Like, especially seeing some of these things in Doc's garage, that like the burnt toast, the dog food feeder arm. Like, you could just open up your own can of dog food. But the idea is obviously, ironically, that Doc has not enough time.
Yes, good point. This opening scene was added after they recast Marty, because they originally had some classroom scene where Marty gets detention. Or, I'm sorry, he sets off a fire alarm to get out of detention. And they did not want to reshoot all this, so they just ended up doing this pan of Doc's lab. And they needed 20 clock wranglers to sync up all these clocks.
That's awesome and hilarious.
Yes. It seems like, you know, they solved one problem in terms of not having to reshoot an entire scene, and then they created a whole new problem where they had to have clock wranglers and pulleys set up to start all the clocks at the same time.
I feel like that's a smaller problem, though. The beginning, as we go through and see all these clocks and different photos, and I feel like maybe some parts of film school is coming through here, and I cannot help but think of Rear Window, the beginning, where, you know, we see a bunch of his photographs, and we see the shot of the race car that's flying at the camera, and we see his foot in the wheelchair. Like, we've learned so much about Doc before we even hear Marty. It's just good directing here, Zemeckis.
Yeah, definitely. So like you said, we don't really see anyone yet, and we only see Marty's feet walking in, but he starts calling for Doc to see if he's home. And I just felt like Michael J. Fox's voice is like my childhood. That felt so nostalgic before I even saw him.
Yeah.
And I really feel like, you know, once I realized I was having this reaction to it, I think he was kind of the first actor I ever really knew by name. And I don't really know why. I just feel like he was so famous when I was a kid.
Well, I feel like that's probably the same for me. But if this is his first film, he would have probably done other things by the time we've actually seen it.
Right.
Because we weren't born yet. I was originally thinking maybe because of Family Ties, which obviously was happening at the same time. But and I saw that on TV, syndication.
Right,
you know,
same.
If I was homesick from school or whatever. I don't remember much about it. But I think I only really put it on because Michael J. Fox was in it. I'm like, oh, it's the Back to the Future guy. I got to watch this. And I'm like, I'll go back to watch Back to the Future instead.
I know my parents were fans of Family Ties, and maybe that's why they were, like, maybe we were all just kind of Michael J. Fox fans. I don't know. I remember him being in the show Spin City, but that was later.
That was much later, but I also watched that show.
I did too. I mean, I remember some of his other movies, like, that didn't, you know, they weren't as big as Back to the Future, but still.
I can't think of much besides, like, the sequels and
The Frighteners.
Which was later.
Oh, Teen Wolf.
That's the one I was thinking of.
I watched Teen Wolf a lot on TV, I think, when I was a kid. Because I know I had, for some reason, I watched Teen Wolf a lot. I think I just watched whatever was on. I don't know.
That's probably true.
Instead of like going out of my way to rent things that might be interesting, I was just like, what is TBS going to show me today?
Yeah.
Yeah, because now I'm picturing him playing basketball as the
Mm-hmm.
wolf.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Okay. All right. Back to the future. So we see that, the clocks are wrong. He realizes he's late for school. Just immediately, this felt like some 80s sitcom to me. Like, oh no, I'm late for school. And you cue the music and he has to find a wacky way to get to school on his skateboard. And like,
Yeah.
it all just felt so of our childhood. Like, coming up with inventions and machines to do jobs for you that you're arguably perfectly capable of doing on your own. Everything's broken. Oh no, I'm late for school. Like,
Yeah. Coming up with machines to do ordinary tasks. This is like AI before AI. I don't know why I thought it was, I wouldn't say weird, but I just noticed it this time that when he first leaves Doc's garage, lab, whatever it is, both, he goes skateboarding out. It's like right by a Burger King. And I realized like Doc's lab is like in the quote unquote industrial area of this town. And I never really noticed that before because, when I'm a kid, I'm just, oh, Michael J. Fox is cool. He's skateboarding to school, like,
right.
and the music, although cheesy, works super well and does get me jazzed up.
Yeah, this is when we hear Power of Love, right?
Yeah.
I appreciate using the song in the movie instead of just on the ending credits.
If you pay for it, you might as well use it a couple of times. Why not?
There we go, yeah. Okay, so Marty's late for school. He runs into his girlfriend, Jennifer. They're both late for school, though? Or is she late because she's trying to look out for Marty?
Yes.
Okay. But this is when, they turn a corner, they run into the principal who knows that they are late. And he ends up, okay, we see that Marty is maybe kind of a screw up or something because the principal's giving him a hard time. But as they're talking, he gets closer and closer to Marty's face. And at first you're like, okay, he's getting in his face. He's being the tough guy principal. Then they're just nose to nose.
Yeah, literally, their noses are touching. Yeah.
Yeah. We have our season full of asshole principals, I guess.
Well, yes. 80s was a different time, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
If
Yep.
you were to change the music in that scene, that would look like a romance scene. Like, that's how close they get.
Mm-hmm. What I thought was weird, though, and it makes more sense to talk about this more later, but he calls Marty, I can't remember exactly what he calls him, but he says something like, just like your dad. And he also uses the word slacker a few times referring to Marty's dad. And to me, I feel like I would have pictured something different if George McFly was considered a slacker. Like, I feel like George McFly is just a big nerd.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It doesn't scream slacker to me, especially when we know he's doing like double homework because he's doing all of Biff's work.
Right, yeah. He's an overachiever in just the wrong way.
Right. Like, Marty, I could see him being called a slacker if he's late for school a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like that's a little different. But this scene where he's trying out for, it's a battle of the bands. It's not a talent show. Right?
Yes.
Marty and his band are at tryouts after school. The judges are very unamused. You see them all sitting there stony-faced. Huey Lewis is the judge that stands up and tells him that they're being too darn loud.
That's awesome.
I guess Zemeckis really wanted to give him a cameo in the movie because he thought it'd be fun. And Huey Lewis said he would only do it if he could be in disguise, as he put it. So that's why he isn't exactly recognizable. He also is uncredited because he just wanted to be totally incognito if he was going to have a cameo.
I mean, he kind of looks like himself. He looks like if he was Huey Lewis without the news. Like, he's just like a regular dude. Or it kind of looks like he's Huey Lewis giving the news, I should say.
There you go.
Like, he looks like a reporter.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think Huey Lewis had some, like, super, like, significant look that felt like he was George Michael or something.
Right.
So, I don't know. Whatever. He was like, I will do a cameo if it's, like, completely secret and hidden from everyone. I don't know why.
Worked for me.
Yeah, I don't know why they had to, like, work so hard to get Huey Lewis to be involved in this. You also just, like, don't have to do a cameo. Did he realize that? But this idea of adults don't get rock and roll. Like, again, very classic. Like, nobody puts baby in the corner
Right,
kind of a
yeah.
thing. Hmm.
I want to touch on the fact that Zemeckis wanted the script to reflect Marty was a big Huey Lewis fan, and then Huey Lewis is sitting there. I know it's scripted, obviously, listening to them try out, and
Hmm.
he's too. I was like, when you said this the first time, I was like, did they not hear Marty play the guitar? Like, it doesn't sound like he's a huge Huey Lewis fan, but what do I know?
That's a really good point, especially when we get into like, when he's playing guitar at the dance later. Nothing about this screams Huey Lewis. So
No. And then just kind of an afterthought. I wonder if when they were just saying slacker about the McFlys, if it's like kind of a more nice way of calling his dad a loser. I don't know, because like you said, slacker gives a different tone, but I could see if you replace that word with something more modern, like, oh, your dad's a loser, because he didn't really amount to anything. He's successful in the
exactly.
fact that he's got a house, he's got kids, he takes care of them, but like he's kind of
Hmm.
just pushed around his whole life.
Yeah, exactly. And that's definitely what I thought, even more so when we see what George McFly is like as a teenager. He's just getting pushed around. He's just a nerd or maybe like a loser, like you said, because he's still getting pushed around by Biff in his, old age.
Yeah.
But slacker, I'm not, whatever.
Yeah, just maybe different terminology for slang. I don't know.
Maybe.
It's something we get lost in the sauce because we're not from that time exactly.
He's a discipline case.
Marty's about to be. He's got 4 tardies in a row.
That's true. So we cut to a scene of Jennifer and Marty in the town square. We also see somewhat behind them that the town square is a little gritty, maybe. Not sure. There's like a porno playing in the movie theater behind them.
Yeah, so some overfull garbage cans.
Hmm.
I don't know if we see the bum yet.
But this is when they're trying to remind me the Historical Society is taking donations to save the clock tower, meaning keep it in its broken state. Is that what it is? Because it
Yes.
got struck by lightning and they want to keep it from when it was struck by
Preserves.
lightning. Yeah.
Yeah. Versus making a new clock tower. Why not? Sure, yeah. You could
Hmm.
always just build another one separate from this, I guess. Either way, I guess you would need money. Yeah, she gets right up in their face when
Hmm.
they're, I think, about to have a romantic moment.
Hmm.
And I'm watching this with my wife, and she looks at me and says, they were just clock blocked.
That was really good.
I didn't laugh out loud because I was taking notes. I just gave her this like sideways look. She's like, "God, that was funny." I was like, it was funny, but
It
like,
was very funny.
it's because I don't laugh out loud all the time doesn't mean I don't think it's funny.
No, that was a good one. So we end up with Marty back at his house. We see already, like we had mentioned already, that his dad works for Biff, sort of, kind
Yeah,
of.
probably.
And his dad's super meek and nerdy, and Biff is this big bully. Biff, George, and Lorraine, all the like adult characters here, have some prosthetics on to make them look older and like a little more filled out. There was a point where the special effects guy, or maybe it was the makeup team, they said this was the hardest part, was the aging makeup, because it, even if you got it to look seamless, it wasn't reflecting light the way actual skin would reflect light once they
Mm,
started moving around. So they had to play around with that a lot. But the person doing these prosthetics said that they would have much rather been doing some like crazy, like sci-fi creature feature thing, because you don't have to worry if it looks realistic because all of that is made up. They said making it look like human skin was like the hardest thing.
yeah, I can see that.
Well, we see that Biff is making George like do his reports for work. He's doing Biff's job for him,
Yeah.
and Biff's kind of still beating him up a little bit because I think he like smacks him at least or something. And then he calls Marty a butthead before he leaves the house.
Yeah.
And I said, if someone called my kid a butthead in my own home,
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of silly of an insult, though. I guess it depends on the context. Here, yeah, I can say he's probably being more of a dick, but
yeah, like I have no problem if, someone's at my house and my kid is acting like a butthead and we're like, hey, stop being a butthead. But this
sure.
was more pointed.
Yeah, it's kind of funny too because Biff reacts to how Marty's staring at him, and he like calls him a butthead to kind of maybe assert more dominance. But you can tell in the quick exchange when he turns and sees Marty giving him this look like, you're such a fucking goon, the way you talk to my dad. And Biff knows it. And I don't want to say Biff's scared of Marty, but Biff sees that Marty's not intimidated by him. And that butthead line,
Marty
I feel
sees through him.
Yeah.
I also just forget how ridiculous Marty's entire family is. Because we see this, it's not, we don't spend too much time with them, but, you know, his mom is apparently an alcoholic. But we had already gotten that line where when Marty is still with Jennifer, that his mom is like a nun, but then we see her drinking. So it also, maybe mom has lied about how good she was as a teenager or something.
Oh, she definitely did.
Okay.
This is like the part where, was it Zemeckis?
Yes.
Pulled from his real life? Yeah.
From his mom's stories being contradictory, yes. Because
at the table, she's talking about girls don't go park cars with boys, girls don't call, and then like girls don't call their boys, and his sister's like, well, how am I supposed to meet anybody? So she's definitely lying about what she did or did not do, or what she thinks girls should or should not do.
Right.
It's, I guess, different when you're 17 and now you're a mother of 3 and you don't want your kids to possibly make your mistakes.
Sure, yeah.
But she is lying.
Yes, she is lying, to be clear. But no, his siblings are both a little odd, maybe a little nerdy, maybe a little stunted almost. I feel like Marty comes off as the only one with a social life, or the only one who has anywhere to go. Although his brother is, I think, off to go flip some burgers.
Yeah, he's got a job. He's got a high school job, which is, I think he might be a little older than high school, but he still has that like entry level job, which is fine,
sure.
Especially in '85, being young and having income.
See, I thought Marty was the youngest.
Yeah, Marty is the youngest, but like they're still at home. They're probably not many years apart. I'm assuming Dave's not 32 and Marty's 17.
Right. But yeah, I feel we're supposed to get the impression that maybe no one in his family, though, is like super successful, even though like I agree with what you're saying for his age.
Right, because, you know, flipping burgers is so bad.
Okay, so this brings us to Marty meeting up with Doc like in the middle of the night in a mall parking lot. Kind of forgot about the whole like middle of the night thing. It just makes it look extra shady. Poor Einstein. Doc's dog Einstein is the test subject so that Doc can demonstrate to Marty that the DeLorean is actually a time machine. First of all, I want to point out that in earlier scripts that it was not going to be a DeLorean. It was just going to be some object that was stationary. And I think it was going to be on something that moved, like some sort of rig that Doc developed. Specifically, in one of the drafts, it was going to be a refrigerator. Spielberg said not to use something so ordinary because he was worried that kids might try to climb into them in real life and, you know, they could be cited as, causing harm to these kids. They also, which we kind of pointed out, wanted a nuclear explosion to be involved in the time travel instead of, I guess at the end, you know, we're using lightning. Well, here we're using plutonium, right? Originally, it was going to involve a nuclear explosion, and whatever machine they were going to use would be fueled by Coke, like the drink Coke. It's the 80s, so it could have been the drug too, but you know what I mean.
It's probably both.
Yeah.
It's probably both, yeah.
Yeah.
Doc's up late. You know, why is he on the back of a toilet? Maybe he's got some issues he's got to resolve, and the flux capacitor is a Coke dream, and then the Coca-Cola fuels the car.
Mm-hmm. Robert Zemeckis finally came up with the DeLorean because they wanted something that could move. They didn't, I think Spielberg in particular didn't like this idea that it was an object that would be on top of something that moved. And so having it be a car simplified it, first of all. The DeLorean, because the design was unique with the gull wing doors, it would look more like a UFO, they felt, to people in the 1950s.
It looked like a UFO to me in like 1990. I've never seen a car like that before.
Oh, for sure. I don't think the only other time I've seen a car like that was just also in movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like Glenn in The Wedding Singer.
Yeah.
Ford Motor Company offered the production $75,000 if they would use a Mustang instead of a DeLorean. Number one surprised at this because apparently no one had faith in this movie, but then Ford was like, here's money to use our car. Bob Gale, our co-writer, co-producer, said, Doc Brown doesn't drive a fucking Mustang.
Yeah. Yeah. That wouldn't make any sense.
It would not.
And then even if he did, you wouldn't build a time machine out of a Mustang. Like, that's not.
Well, that's the thing too. Like, they do so much to the DeLorean. It's obviously like beat up throughout the movie. I don't feel like Ford would love that either. We mentioned Einstein the dog is put in the DeLorean first, and Doc makes the car drive with the remote control. He sends Einstein, it's like a minute into the future or something.
Yes.
Okay. So Einstein disappears in the DeLorean. Marty is distressed because he's like, oh my God, the dog's dead, whatever. And then when the car comes back too, it's iced over, but it looks like it's possibly burned out. Like, it looks really bad. Safe to assume just by seeing this that the dog wouldn't be alive anymore. Test audiences apparently were extremely distressed because they all thought he killed the dog.
Oh, no.
His own dog. So that was the hurdle they had to get over, where people were pretty much ready to walk out because they thought the dog was dead. And then once he was okay, they kind of settled in and were okay with the rest of the movie.
Yeah, interesting. I can't remember what I thought the first time watching it because obviously I know the dog is not dead.
Right.
I feel like I just didn't think about it when I was that little. I somehow trusted Doc not to put the dog in danger. Like, he was so confident, like I was confident in him. Mm-hmm. You know, I was more on Doc's side than Marty in this situation. Like, no, it's going to work. It's obviously going to work. Look at his remote control skills. Like, how long has he been practicing that? He was pretty good.
I don't know. I think that I just saw him as such a mad scientist that I wouldn't have been surprised.
That'd be a whole other movie.
It would be a whole other movie.
You open the car door and Einstein's dead. This is where you need Stoltz. We need that serious, like...
Yeah. This is when it stops being a comedy. No more screwball. Dog's dead.
Marty was asked to record everything because, you know, this is a big scientific breakthrough and we need proof. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because as they line up the car to come right at them, which, again, what do you do?
Why right at... Yeah.
Yeah, why right at... Even if you believe in your own invention that it will go to and from the future.
Yeah.
And obviously he calculated the distance but like it's close and you get nervous, right? And right before he starts the car to take off, he looks at Marty and is like, you're going to see some serious shit. And first of all, this is PG, yes?
Yes.
Okay. And then Marty like side eyes him and slowly tries to like sidestep away from oncoming traffic, as it were, and he pulls him back in, like, no. This is you got to be head on for this. You got to see this coming, and I think it's really funny.
Yeah, the fact that Marty tries to get out of the way and Doc puts him right back in there, but also Doc's not doing a whole lot to assuage any concerns that Marty has anyway, because he let Marty think the dog disappeared. He let him think the dog died. He lets Marty think he's just gonna get run over by a DeLorean. Like, it's a lot going on that Marty just kind of got thrown into.
My argument would be that he's not really letting Marty think that, but he's also just so excited and amped up that he's not explaining anything besides, all right, your explanation is just you watching and filming this. Like, you're going to be so amazed what's about to happen.
Sure, right.
I mean, he's an absent-minded scientist.
Yeah. 88 miles per hour was chosen as the time travel speed because, according to Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis, it was easy to remember and looked cool on the speedometer.
Good enough for me.
Sure.
It wasn't like his dad's football jersey number or something weird like the other things we heard.
I know, right? Zemeckis always said that he called it the time slice effect, meaning when the DeLorean actually blipped into the past or the future, whatever you want to say it. He wanted it to be quick, which is why, the DeLorean just speeds up and disappears, because he didn't want the audience thinking too much about how it all worked.
Perfect.
Which is fair.
Yeah. It's a fun movie. We don't need to... This is not Interstellar. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm not really coming here for, reality. So
A lecture.
Right, a lecture, science lecture. No.
Yeah.
Okay. Watching this back, I mean, obviously I was familiar with Michael J. Fox before. Obviously I've seen this before. I just feel like he is so charming in this movie. I could totally understand why Robert Zemeckis wanted him in this, but also, like we already pointed out, the levity he brings to it. And maybe it's not an outright comedic role, but his timing is so good, delivering these lines. And this is, where he's all incredulous saying, "Are you telling me you built a time machine out of a DeLorean?" And he just is hitting these lines so well that it's like, everything is funny to me, but it's his delivery.
Yeah.
But also, with Christopher Lloyd's facial expressions, all I can see is Uncle Fester.
Yeah, I get it. I could see that. I just see Christopher Lloyd. Like, to me, Christopher Lloyd is Doc Brown, but I know him in other roles, and he's always kind of the same rubber-faced guy. Like,
That's true.
I mean, this role specifically makes me think of, I think his name was Jim, but don't quote me on that. But his character from Taxi is, I feel like, kind of very similar to Doc as far as mannerisms and absent-mindedness. Or The Page Master, I think of that because I love that movie too. But yeah, he just has very expressive features, especially his big eyes.
Yes.
Yeah, he's got crazy eyes.
There are a few times in Back to the Future where Christopher Lloyd is looking shocked, and it's like when his mouth is wide open, I just see Uncle Fester. But see, I probably, if I'm being honest, watched the Addams Family movies more than Back to the Future growing up. So that's one thing. But also, we, as a family, we watch Addams Family Values like once a year at Thanksgiving.
Fair enough, yeah.
So.
Oh, also, he was the bad guy in Who Framed Roger Rabbit because he's part cartoony.
Oh, yeah.
Spoiler alert. That, like, he does kind of have extra expressions on his face as well.
That's true. Yeah. Gosh, I forgot all about that. Okay. So they say shit for a second time, by the way, when I can't remember exactly when, but the Libyans come in and they attack Doc for stealing their plutonium. Because we decided to use plutonium to power the DeLorean, not Coca-Cola.
It's more believable, so it works.
Again, I personally don't care if my kid hears some swear words. I'm just surprised that they got away with so many uses of the word shit in a PG movie at this time.
Yeah. Well, our boy, Spielberg, he's part of it. So, he's going to the powers that be. And it's like, listen, I'm going to float you a couple 20s over here, and you're just going to keep it PG. 20s.
But so Doc is shot dead. So we assume. Marty drives away in the DeLorean. Who is taking care of Einstein? Where is Einstein?
Einstein's in the van. In the ice cream truck looking thing.
Oh, right.
And he's got his plutonium thing on. His little hazmat suit that just kind of looks like a raincoat. It's kind of cute.
No, it is very cute, yeah.
It looks like he's serving ice cream. Like, it doesn't look like he's going to be saved from some sort of plutonium radiation. It just looks like he's going to go out and splash in puddles. But he's also was in the van at the time, so he was not really by the plutonium.
Who's the producer? Was it Scheinberg that said that use a dog, not a chimp? Give me a dog dressed up in any kind of outfit. Yeah.
It works.
It does work.
Jumping all the way back to the beginning, though, again, more of great directing without telling us things while we're scoping around the garage or whatnot. The TV's on. We hear a story about these terrorist groups stealing the plutonium, and then the final shot when Marty's leaving is a plutonium case under a bed or mattress or something like that. And then now Doc, he tells him he sold the Libyans just some sort of random contraption with pinball parts inside, and it's fucking hilarious to me. He's so proud of himself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now we get our third shit when Marty's escaping or trying to escape the Libyans, and they pull a bazooka out.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like three shits in 3 minutes here.
Do you like? Am I just completely stupid for missing this? How does the car get programmed to 1955?
Oh, they were having dialogue before the Libyans attacked about the year and
Mm-hmm.
the dates in which Doc bumped his head to come up with the drawing of the flux capacitor. He was just showing Marty like how the programming works.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, let's say you want to do this. Let's say you want to do this. Let's say you want to go to this year. And he's like reminiscing, like, oh yeah, that was the year.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's
Okay.
all. So it's all
I thought it was something like that where they got interrupted during that. Okay. So yeah, we see Marty. He ends up in a barn in the DeLorean.
yeah. So during the chase from the bazooka, he obviously hits 88 miles an hour. I think that's. I mean, that's. I don't think I know. It has to be why they go to the mall at night. So
It's the most memorable number. What do you mean?
Well, I mean, just like they go to the mall at night to have the
I
space. Like when I used to have to practice driving maneuverability. You know, you don't do it in a busy parking lot.
Oh my god!
You don't do it when there's a bunch of cars you could hit. Well, so he hits the designated speed and goes to where the mall was, and it's a pine grove or potential pine grove.
Mm-hmm.
Which, again, man, I've seen this movie a bunch of times, and I'm sure I've noticed these things here and there, but when you're doing it all at once, the writing's so good. I love that there's an aside about this area that Doc tells Marty right before all the experiments happen. Like, oh yeah, I remember this is a mall. I remember when it used to be Mr. Peabody's Pine Lot, and it was called, like, Twin Pines. And then when Marty escapes the garage because they think he's an alien, they try shooting him with a shotgun.
Right.
Which again is hilarious. He knocks over one of the pine trees of the Twin Pines. I'm jumping ahead now. When they come back to 1985, it's now called Lone Pines.
Yeah.
Or Lone Pine. I guess it wouldn't be plural.
Yeah.
But either way, it's the little things, man. And the little things are so great.
When he's driving away and takes out the one pine, you hear the farmer say something like, "Not my pine, you asshole," or something.
Yeah.
I also want to point out that when I was doing the research and the one guy suggested changing the title to The Man from Pluto, this was the only scene, just this shot was the only time I thought that could even remotely fit. Like when the DeLorean's opening up, with its weird doors, and Marty's coming out in the hazmat suit or whatever, and everything looks very alien. That's the only time that would have worked. But yes, I agree with you about the little changes. It's fun.
Marty is walking around the town square in the 50s, and my wife pointed out, like, in the background there is a Sherwin-Williams sign, and it is the same logo that we see today 70 years later, or maybe it's slightly changed, I'm sure, but it was very much Sherwin-Williams. I don't think I've ever noticed that. It's in the back. It's like over his shoulder in the background. Noticed. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, it was kind of cool to see, and the fact that this is 1955 allegedly, and that logo is still very much the same to this day.
Yeah, that is funny. I liked that when Marty's running through the square, you see, the theater that was showing the adult movie in 1985. Now it's currently showing a movie with Barbara Stanwyck and Ronald Reagan. And I understand this leads us to our joke later about Ronald Reagan being president, but it's always so funny to me when I randomly am reminded that Ronald Reagan was an actor.
Yeah.
Because that's not something I always knew growing up. It's like at some point I learned that and I was like, wait, how did he become president? And then I forget that he was like a fairly popular, famous actor. It wasn't like he just had a failed acting career and was like, okay, I guess I'll go into politics. But anyway, apparently Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale were very relieved that they didn't have to cut their Reagan joke because he was reelected in time for this movie to come out.
Yes.
Because they thought that was a good one. But it was also, I noticed this time that they advertised that the movie theater has air conditioning, which is just another thing that's like funny to me that wasn't a given. because we're
Right.
just so used to certain things. That's all. But yeah, I do like this very incredulous walk around the square. And then, he gets into the diner or the malt shop, whatever you want to call it, when he wants to order a tab. And the guy's like, you got to order something if you want to start a tab. And then he's like, Pepsi free, which I assume is a sugar free Pepsi that was out in the 80s. And the guy's like, you can't get a Pepsi for free.
Yeah, it's very tongue in cheek and it's almost too cheesy to be in there. And they don't do these kind of jokes throughout the whole film.
Right.
Thank God. But it's funny because he just got into the 50s, so he is confused, obviously. We all are. And it works. But if they would have kept that going,
that would have been too much, yeah.
That would have been too much.
So we do see that Pepsi agreed to have their products in the movie, because I think at one point when he's asleep, we see a Pepsi can on his nightstand and stuff. Pepsi apparently wanted this joke cut because Tab was a Coca-Cola product. I had completely forgotten about Tab.
Yeah.
Personally. Did you know it was out until 2020?
No.
It wasn't discontinued until 5 years ago. Like, that's crazy.
That is such a grandma drink.
I know.
I mean, RC Cola still exists, doesn't it? And I feel like I associate that with grandma.
Yeah.
Like, I'd go over, like, oh, you have RC Cola? Okay.
But I love the reveal of him sitting next to his dad, like, doing the same motion with their hand, and then the way they both turn, like, that's great. This is why I watch movies. Like, that's perfect.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. That's Biff and, Billy Zane and the gang.
Yeah.
Who knew? Watched it for 40 years and never knew.
No.
Yeah, so they, like, run roughshod on Lord George, and we see the same dialogue from, 1985, only instead of his, like, reports, it's his homework, obviously.
Right.
So nothing changed in this relationship. They leave, and maybe it's just my brain is fucking with me because, as I pointed out, this is the same lot that they did Gremlins on. That's the same theater that blows up, all the kind of stuff. Well, like, there's a weird, like, sound effect when they were leaving. Like, all the guys are laughing, but one of the laughter, I swear to God, like, had the same, like, weird chittering laughter effect as the Gremlins. And I went back, I was like, that can't be the same, but I heard it twice. I'm like, okay. I just thought it was weird. I don't know if it's the actual same audio file.
Sometimes I go back through the movie when we have notes and I'm trying to make sure everything's in order. I went back to check this out and I heard it too.
Okay.
Specifically when they're all in the car driving away, not when they
Yes.
leave the diner. Okay. Yes, like the high pitch gremlin laugh.
Yeah, I was going to do it, but I can't.
No, it's okay. I'm not even going to attempt. But yeah, I also feel like I heard it maybe mixed in when they're chasing Marty, when Marty's on the like makeshift skateboard and they're in the car right before they run into the manure. I could have sworn I heard it like the gremlin kind of chatter mixed in, because you kind of hear the four of them talking and just randomly saying things like, yeah, get him, whatever. But I swear I could hear that gremlin chatter mixed in there too. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was, because like you said, it's Steven Spielberg, same lot. Why not?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
Okay, but then we get to at the end of this scene in the diner. Marty supposedly gives Goldie, who's right now just a random employee at the diner, the idea to run for mayor. And I think we see in 1985 he's running for re-election, I believe, as mayor. Okay. This is always my issue with time travel movies, because now it seems like Marty gave Goldie the idea to run for mayor. So it's like, okay, so is this all happening because he went back in time now? Like, he wouldn't have come up with this unless he would accidentally travel back to 1955. Like, there's too many variables for me. This is my problem with time travel movies.
Just say yes.
Yeah, just say yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a more serious time travel movie, but I want to say yes. Like, it is a little bit of a mind boggle, because if he's not getting reelected or running for reelection, then he wouldn't already be mayor, which means when he says in 1955, I'm going somewhere, and Marty says, you're going to be mayor, and he goes, yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Would he have ran for mayor if otherwise? As if he didn't, then Marty wouldn't know he was mayor. But would Marty go back in time? Other like it's yeah,
It's too much.
but
Yeah.
you're just assuming that he probably was the catalyst for Goldie to get the idea to eventually run for mayor, and I'm okay with that.
And then, of course, while I'm going back and forth with this in my head, the owner of the diner points out, a colored mayor, that'll be the day. I like how they throw these little lines in here throughout the movie to remind us that the 1950s were racist.
Yeah, well, yeah.
No other times were.
Sure. Just 1955. That was a bad year.
Yep. The next scene that also does not sit well with me. Apparently, Marty's dad is a perv.
No, it's not apparent. He is, yes.
Yeah, and he's in a tree watching Lorraine undress in front of her bedroom window.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
And then he falls out of the tree, almost gets hit by the car. Marty saves him, but in doing so screws up his parents' meet cute because his parents met when his dad got hit by a car driven by her dad.
Yes. So now Marty is, lack of a better term, taking on the role of George.
Sure, in this particular instance, yeah.
Yes.
And her dad, Marty's future grandpa, says, another one of these damned kids jumped in front of my car. What does that mean? Like, this keeps happening?
So, do you think Lorraine is really innocent and doesn't know that she's changing in front of an open window where there's a tree across the street?
I don't know. I guess maybe I did.
I think I did for maybe 20 years, but then the last 20 years I was like, I mean, you watch the rest of the movie and she's often the pursuer.
Yeah, that's true. She has parked before.
She has.
Okay, so this leads us to Marty's hit by the car. He is brought into her house, comes to in her bed, in her bedroom. I totally forgot about Lorraine calling him Calvin Klein because that's written on his underwear. I literally laughed out loud when she was like, oh, Calvin, that's on your underwear. Just so funny.
He bumped his head. Why is he missing his pants? Like,
she took them off.
Right. Why? Okay, if this was me, as in like the parents, that's the last place I'd put this boy.
In your daughter's room. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I
had that thought too,
he
yeah.
could just lay on the damn couch with an ice pack. I don't understand here. This is also a stranger. Like, who knows what he's capable of? Granted, things were different and more wholesome, mostly, I guess, in 1955, minus, like, the black people can't be mayors or anything.
Right.
But people weren't exactly, like, locking their doors and afraid that strangers were going to kill them all the time. Even still, you just put him on the sofa.
Yeah, I thought this was so weird that this was we got hit by the car. Let's bring him in to recover and he'll have dinner with us and stay a while. And, oh, his parents aren't home. He should stay the weekend. Like, it was just bizarre to me. I don't know, man. 50s were weird, I guess.
Well, they probably also feel that I'm pretty responsible for running over a kid.
That's true, yeah. So that being said, Marty eventually makes his way downstairs, meets his Uncle Joey, who is a baby at this point and in a playpen or a crib. And we had heard earlier in the beginning of the movie in 1985 that Joey is in jail. So Marty says something like, so you're my Uncle Joey, better get used to those bars, kid.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That was
and
pretty
then
good.
Joey's mom, which is Marty's grandma, says something like, oh yeah, he just loves it in there. Every time we try to pick him up and take him out of there, he just cries and cries. We put him back in and he's happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're saying Joey's been institutionalized since day one.
Yeah, exactly.
Brooks was here, so was Joey.
They all sit down to eat dinner at the dining room table with a TV at one end.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked a lot about kitchen TVs in the past. People having TVs on their kitchen counters in these movies, and now we have a dining room TV.
Yeah. Bizarre, because he had to do a lot of work to drag that thing in there.
I did think this was funny, though, that Marty has to catch himself because he's saying, like, oh, this one's funny. I've seen this one before. And they're like, how? This is new. And what's a rerun? And I like these exchanges. When he finally gets up to leave, he's going to go find Doc. He asks them what street this is that he found out Doc lives on. And he says something like, oh, that's up past like John F. Kennedy Drive or something. And they're like, who the hell is John F. Kennedy?
Yeah.
Then right before he leaves, see you all later. Much later.
Yeah, that's a good line.
Oh, so this is when he runs into Doc and he's trying to explain everything to Doc at his home. Okay, first of all, is this the same house? Am I supposed to think that this is the same house he has in 1985 and just like things have built up around it?
I would have to assume so because Marty knows where to find him.
Well, no, I thought he found it because he like tore the page out of the yellow pages or whatever. Or the phone book.
Oh. Shit.
Because okay, so they make a point when he's leaving Doc's house in the beginning to show us the address on the gate, and then they show the address on his front door when Marty walks up to it. So I feel like maybe that was supposed to show us it's the same. Because he kind of lives out in the middle of nowhere right now, but in the 80s, obviously, there's like stuff built up around his house.
Yeah, like Burger King.
Burger King, yeah. He's trying to convince Doc that he's from the future. Thought it was very funny that part of the reason Doc doesn't believe him is because Ronald Reagan is president.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty good.
I laughed when he's just trying to get rid of Marty, and he's like, good night, future boy.
It's very silly.
Yes.
But Doc is very silly, so it works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we talk about the songs written for the movie, so Mr. Huey. But the score is also really good. Obviously, there's the theme song, which is amazing. It's like up there for me with like, I don't know, Star Wars and Jurassic Park. But the scene where they go back to get the DeLorean so he can prove that he's not a future... Well, he is a future boy, I guess. He's trying to prove he is a future boy.
Yeah.
I don't know, this is so suspenseful and scary. It works really well, but still, again, whimsical. This is not a serious movie, but it's also got serious elements to it, and it all works.
Yeah, I agree with you. This was played very spooky.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how else to say it. I really did like how Doc finally believes him, but he's still like getting it all wrong.
Yeah, he's looking at it through 1955 eyes. Mm-hmm. They're watching back the video that Marty took, and he's like, what am I wearing? And Marty explains it's a radiation suit. And he's like, oh, of course, from all the fallout from the atomic wars.
Yeah.
He's like assuming that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then he explains, no, because, we're fueling the car with plutonium. And they're arguing about how to like help Marty get back in time. And he's like, oh, it's not like plutonium's on every corner store. Like he thinks that's the case in 1985. You just walk into CVS and buy plutonium or something.
Right, yeah. Like I'm sure in 1985 there's plutonium in every store.
Yeah.
But this is when we get the title of the movie, because he says, we're sending you back to the future.
Yeah, he like dead ass looks right at the camera and points.
Yeah. I really like this in the next scene when they're at the high school, because Marty explains that he might have messed things up with his parents, and I think this is when he sees his brother start to disappear in the photograph. So he realizes he has to make sure his parents get back together before he goes back to the future, or he won't exist anymore. Marty says that this is really heavy because it's weighing on him. It's a hard situation. And Doc is like, there's that word again, heavy. What's going on in the future? Is there a problem with the Earth's gravitational pull?
I've always thought that line was funny. It's just, again, a fun way to poke fun at the fact that slang is ever changing, and
yeah,
the old people don't know what the young people are saying, and it's even funnier considering there's a 30-year gap now in time as well.
Yeah, definitely.
They see a poster for the Enchantment Under the Sea dance, which is where his parents fell in love, and Doc's looking at it too. He's like, look, there's a rhythmic ceremonial ritual coming up.
That was great.
Like, what? I don't think I've ever really caught that.
So this is when we get to the cafeteria fight between Marty and Biff. Apparently the one that Eric Stoltz was like really pushing Biff for. Biff says, why don't you make like a tree and get out of here? I was like, what does that mean? And then I finally realized it was supposed to be, why don't you make like a tree and leave?
Yeah, Biff is not smart.
I don't know if I'm smart because I was like, what is that?
Well, yeah, because it's wrong. He said it wrong. So your reaction
Sure.
is, mostly justified.
Mostly justified. This bit where Marty decides to play up like to George's interest in sci-fi and he puts on the radiation suit and wakes George up playing this guitar riff. That was Eddie Van Halen playing that guitar. Somehow, some way, Zemeckis and Bob Gale wanted to use Van Halen in the movie. The band said no, but I guess Eddie Van Halen still thought it sounded like a cool idea, so this was his contribution.
Which is it, Zemeckis? Does McFly like Van Halen or Huey? I mean, I guess you could like both. I'm not saying you can't, but
Sure.
I'm getting mixed vibes here.
Yep. But this is when he's like coaching George to go approach Lorraine. And you pointed this out that I really like George like psyching himself up in the diner to go talk to her.
Yeah, well, Marty's helping a little bit, but he's finally
Yeah.
feeling himself, and he
Yeah.
has a little bit of a cool kid moment. He gets up to the counter, he like slams a I don't know, nickel, I don't know what it cost back then, onto the counter. He's like, Lou, give me a milk chocolate, and then like it comes sliding down like it's already ready.
Yeah.
He takes a big swig and like he looks so
Yep.
cool and confident. That changes very quickly, of course.
Of course, right? Well, yeah, and we see as soon as he gets up there, he's fumbling over his words because he says, I'm George McFly. I'm your density.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he says density twice. He's like says that line, but like he differently, and then he says that again. But
He
like
says
he keeps
something like, my density has led me to you or something. And then
Yeah,
he says, I'm
something
George
like that.
McFly. Yeah. Again, I was cracking up when. So we see Biff walk in. Marty trips Biff so that he doesn't mess up this moment between his parents. Obviously, that just makes everyone pay more attention to like Biff and Marty. And then when he's escaping the scene or whatever, Lorraine says, That's Calvin Klein. Oh my God, he's a dream.
right.
Like, the Calvin Klein stuff is so funny to me.
Could you imagine thinking this guy's name is Calvin Klein, Marty to his friends, and then years later he becomes
Yep.
the real Calvin Klein? And you're like, oh, I
Comes
saw
on
him
the
at that
scene.
diner once.
Yeah. I thought
was-
that too.
I almost went on a date with Calvin Klein. He looks
Yeah.
much different.
Yeah. He trips Biff. He stands up to him, even though he's obviously much shorter than him. Like, literally stands up to him and then flees, starts running away on his makeshift skateboard. And of course, the rain's swooning all over the place. And I wrote, Marty, stop looking so cool. Like, you're ruining it.
Yeah. I love the shot where after he trips Biff and he's like standing up over him and Biff stands up and it's from behind Biff and Michael J. Fox is now just gone from the scene minus his eyeballs and eyebrows.
Yeah, yeah.
And just he gives a little bit of like a
Like a
raises-
look.
Yeah, he raises his eyebrows in like little shock and disbelief and kind of like a oh shit, what am I getting into? And it's such a good shot. It's so cool.
Yeah.
We'll see that like some of these things get repeated in the sequels, but
Yeah.
it's cool that they bring these back. I don't know. He does look so cool. I remember watching this when I was a kid and thinking Marty McFly was cool. Like this guy is skateboarding
Yeah.
all over the place. He's a little guy. He's sticking up to bullies and getting away. He's not getting beat up, and he's looking pretty cool doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was just so natural and casual for him to be doing all these things.
Exactly.
And then they crash into a manure truck, and we get our fourth shit. Which is funny because then they get covered in shit. So really it's our fifth shit, but one is physical, the other is spoken.
Yep.
At the dance, one of the bandmates is playing a saxophone. Why is the saxophone so popular in 1955 and 1985? What's going on with saxophones in 1985?
I don't know.
I need to research on this.
I could see it maybe in 1955, given the music they were playing. But yeah, I'd
Exactly.
really love to know why, sax was a sexy instrument for 1985. This is more so my question for like Rob Lowe.
Yeah, and whoever the guy was in
my
Lost
God, who
Boys.
Joel Schumacher. Gotta ask him too.
In those movies, not to get too far away from Back to the Future, just these are like kind of beefy, oiled up, shirtless men playing a saxophone, like not off to the side. They are in front of the lead guitar player. They're in front of the lead singer.
Front and
like,
center, yep.
Women are throwing panties at them. Like, it's ridiculous.
Oh my god. Yeah, I don't know. We see Marty arriving to the dance with Lorraine. He had planned this whole thing with George where Marty's gonna kind of come on to Lorraine and George is gonna come save the day. I love how shocked he is that his mom is like, what? I've parked before, and she's drinking and she's smoking. Like, it's just, Michael J. Fox's reactions are great. Like, going back to what you said about the way he looks at Biff's shoulder, it's just these little bits that he's, like I said, he's so charming, but these little bits make it so funny.
He like tries to give her advice to like maybe not drink or drink so much, because in the current future that he's trying to save, they make some sort of comment that she's drinking or she's quote unquote overweight, which I didn't get that, and that also you're like walking through the kitchen pouring vodka in like a coffee mug or something.
Yeah. I guess I saw it more like the difference in her face in terms of her weight, but
Yeah, I guess.
But yeah, she was pouring straight like liquor into a glass, and yeah,
Just like the cops in Gremlins.
yeah. I just don't know if Lorraine was mixing it with anything.
It was breakfast time. I'm gonna hope there's orange juice in there.
But we get to. I wanted to point out the part where she does finally kiss Marty, and we all have like feelings about this, I'm sure. But then she says it's like kissing my brother, and the filmmakers felt like they had to put that line in particular to make all of this better. Like, it couldn't just be that she was like, oh, nothing's there. She had to recognize him as some sort of family relation in a sense.
I get it. Somehow it does work. Also, I guess it's a good way to have Lorraine be like, yeah, I thought you were so cool and dreamy, but like, no, there's nothing there. Like, what? This is weird. Because it is weird, but that's what makes it
weird.
Funny. Because she doesn't know. How would she know?
Right, exactly. Well, and it's funny to me too that because we grew up with this movie, this storyline is just accepted. Like, it's this funny thing to us, and then when this was getting made, everyone's saying no to it partially because of this, and they're all really icked out by it, which, like, I guess. But it's just, I don't know. To me, I'm just like, well, that's Back to the Future. What? Like, I don't think I ever thought about it too much.
No. I remember being a kid and watching that and like, oh, no, that's his mom. That's gross. It's weird.
Yeah.
But he, as in Marty, knows that. Like, he's reacting kind of how we are. He's
right, exactly.
taken aback. He's taken aback a little bit that he's like, "Oh, Mom, you were very attractive in your youth. I had no idea." And it startles him a little bit, but the rest of the time, he's like, "Nope, don't look at me like that. Don't touch me. Get out of here." What about this other guy?
Yep.
I don't know. It works. Don't overthink it.
So remind me, what Biff interrupts them instead of George?
Yep.
And then Biff very much like propositions Lorraine.
Yes.
And then when does George come out in all of this?
During that. He's a little late.
Okay. He's like a little late.
Yeah. Well, because both George and Marty have a problem with being on time. Haha. They constantly keep looking at their watches and they're looking at other clocks. During the scene at the beginning when he's filming Doc's like, it's precisely this time, and Marty, like, from the camera glanced down at his watch and then he does a double take and puts it up to his ear as if it was not ticking and like kind of shakes it a little bit. Both Marty and George keep having this issue, and so because George is not on time to pull Marty out of the car, he luckily, because I feel like that would be unbelievable, I don't think that would make Lorraine like George more. It happens to be Biff, and that works better, obviously.
Yeah. So George still ends up saving the day, but then when they get into the dance, like, okay, this is what I don't understand. He already punched out Biff, which for him is like a really big deal. He got into a fight. He stood up to Biff. Then they're in the dance, and he just lets some guy take Lorraine away to dance with her.
Well, it was very brief,
I mean, it was.
but I think the difference between those two scenes is what gave George the courage to punch Biff out is after Biff pushes Lorraine down. Like
Oh,
she's
right.
standing up for him. She's like, he comes to save her, even though it was supposed to be Marty. And it's a real problem is happening. This is not a line someone gave him. It's not an act they're gonna play out to trick Lorraine to fall in love with George. This is a real thing happening, and he's afraid of confrontation, obviously. When Biff pushes Lorraine down and yells at her to shut up or whatever, it's like a fight or flight, and he obviously is infatuated with her
Hmm.
and feels like this is not how you should treat a lady and punches
Hmm.
Biff out. Don't think he still has full confidence in himself quite yet.
That's true.
Again,
Yeah.
it
Okay.
happens brief. Like he looks a little meek, and this guy who for a second I thought might have been Scott Farkus because he's just like dweeby little redhead guy takes Lorraine away, and then we get that moment where Marty's passing out playing Earth Angel.
Yeah.
He comes back and gives Lorraine a very romantic kiss, and everything's back. He much like Stella, he got his groove back.
Like you said, Marty's kind of passing out when he's playing the song. This is the scene that Ken Ralston, the special effects supervisor, was really disappointed with. They had to film Michael J. Fox's hand in close up and then kind of superimpose the two images, composite them together. Robert Zemeckis wanted a subtle fade, but it resulted in a small circle of the hand fading away that didn't really look right, and there was no time to fix it, so that's why we get this weird like outline with the hand. I always thought this looked kind of weird, but that's okay.
Yeah, it never bothered me though. I don't know why.
The picture was the bigger problem because you know how he kind of like sticks it in his guitar, like at the top of his guitar. They had to, make the people disappear and reappear all while they're on a moving object.
Hmm.
So they ended up building the top of the guitar really big and just like filming that as a separate thing and then like kind of painting the picture. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yes. Also wanted to point out this band that is playing at the dance. It's an all black band. It's been pointed out by other film historians that this wouldn't have happened. There would not be like a black band playing for a dance at a white high school at 1955. So this is where we get into the really famous scene of Marty playing Johnny Be Good.
Right.
And he is not actually singing. He is not actually playing, but like, I don't care.
No, I don't care, and it works still. Like Marty, or sorry, damn it, Michael does a very good job at, you know, possibly being the next MTV music star because I
Hmm.
feel like he's playing. I mean, the singing maybe not so much. I'm like that doesn't sound like Michael J. Fox,
Hmm.
but the lip syncing is great. The
Yeah.
mimicking the hand gestures on the guitar is great. I think he does such a good job with his energy, especially with his picking hand, that you're not really looking at his fret hand because he's just all over the place doing crazy solos. He's doing a
Right.
Van Halen tapping on the neck,
Hmm.
which is kind of cool knowing that Van Halen is in the movie in the
Hmm.
tape deck when he's Darth Vader. So that's kind of cool. So you're paying attention to like his whole body is giving a performance. So do I care? Am I even looking at where his hands are on the fret? I am not. I don't care. This is a cool scene. Still gives me goosebumps. It's fun to watch.
Yeah. It's definitely fun to watch. This is definitely what I remember seeing on TV, but then also even I think we kind of mentioned with the Breakfast Club when there would be montages of like it's 80s movie block or something, they would always have this part
Oh
edited
yeah.
in there. At the end of this song, or toward the end of this song, well, first we have Marty saying, I guess you guys aren't ready for that yet, but your kids are going to love it. And everyone is looking very stunned.
Yes, they are. What is this noise?
Yes. But we have one of the guys from the band calling his cousin, Chuck Berry, to say, like, I think I, found that new sound you've been looking for. So Chuck Berry apparently withheld permission to use Johnny Be Good up until the day before filming started. And it's unclear why they ended up paying him $50,000 to use the song, like for the rights to the song. And so people aren't sure if it's because he was holding out for maybe a bigger payday, like the closer they got to filming, they might offer more money. There's also this issue of Marty kind of, in a sense, rewriting history than being the one to like discover this sound that is more so known as, I guess, being invented by African Americans. I don't know how much that really played into it, but there's been a lot of criticism and like historical writings around this scene, given that, again, there would be more segregation at this time where the black band wouldn't even be a part of this. But then
Sure.
also you have like Marty McFly inventing rock and roll according to like this part of history being rewritten.
I take it as another funny gag, like with the mayor. Obviously, that song exists because Marty in '85 knows it, and he plays it because he obviously loves it. But then, yeah, he inspired Chuck Berry. But yeah, I never thought too much of it that way because it's just one of those fun time travel jokes. In '55, what, Elvis was already around and all that kind of shit, right?
Well, so that's what I thought of actually when I was reading the criticism of it, is that I know a lot of times Elvis is credited with kind of pioneering a certain sound that he actually was already hearing from black musicians. And so there's a
Right.
lot of, back and forth in the historical record where Elvis, because he's the one that broke into the mainstream, like gets a lot of credit for things that black musicians were already doing. So I think if you're looking at it through that lens of Marty McFly is now potentially getting credit for like inventing rock and roll when you already had a real life white guy in Elvis potentially taking credit for things.
Right.
Maybe that's where we're heading with this, but I don't know.
Maybe that's what they were saying. Maybe they were kind of poking at Elvis.
Maybe.
I just looked it up. Johnny Be Good comes out in '58, so it's not far from here.
No.
So I'm assuming there's other music out there that's similar, just not mainstream
Not quite
yet.
that yet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's really not far off.
No.
Either way, Marty leaves the dance because he has to, make it on time to get back to 1985. His parents are together. We're all good. Everyone's back in the picture, literally back in the photo. I did think it was cute when Lorraine's like, "Oh, Marty's a really nice name for like a future kid." Again, like you said, I wonder if they all remember that time in high school when they met Calvin Klein, who went by Marty. Son, we named you after Calvin Klein.
Yeah, we named you after Calvin Klein's only friend's name. We knew him like that.
Yep. Yep.
He got us together, actually.
Yeah. Like imagine them, like you said, when Calvin Klein actually hits popularity, mainstream popularity, when Johnny Be Good actually comes out.
Right.
It's funny. I did think this was really funny though when Doc is like in the square waiting for Marty and he's checking all the clocks and he's like, "Damn," turns around, "Damn."
Yeah. Damn, damn.
It was great.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
We mentioned that originally this was supposed to be a nuclear explosion that, takes him through time. This is when they decided it was too expensive and time consuming to mock up a nuclear explosion. They said it was going to cost about $1 million just for that alone, for the effects and whatnot. The animation department called the lightning bolt that we see striking the clock tower the largest bolt of lightning in cinematic history. So they had to animate the lightning, but then there was some issue where the length that Zemeckis wanted to see the lightning on the screen, the longer it was on screen, the more obvious it became that it was animated. And remember, they were rushing all their special effects as it was. So it was originally supposed to start in the distance and move closer to the clock tower, not just come straight down like what we see. What they ended up doing is isolating some frames where the lightning bolt was in a shape that Robert Zemeckis really liked. I guess he
Okay.
wanted a good S shape. And then they sort of ran those frames like over and over again. So we're really only seeing this small bit of what they actually came up with,
Okay.
which it is on screen for a decent amount of time. Like, it works.
It works. Yeah, I think it works. So, nuclear explosion. Is that for every time they travel?
Yes.
So, like, when Einstein traveled, when Marty traveled, when he's about to travel right now, explosion every time.
Yeah, that
That's
was
crazy.
confusing me as well. I know for the one to get him back to 1985, it was going to be like residual from a testing site that was supposed to be nearby. And it's
Sure.
like they would find out that they were testing on this date and that they could then get Marty back. So yeah, I'm not totally sure how that was going to work.
Yeah, this works way better.
Yeah. But also it was going to run on coke. I don't know. A lot was happening in those drafts.
Yeah. So, nothing is easy because the cables get disconnected because a tree falls on it during the storm. So Doc's flustered and fluttering with all that. Marty's in his starting position and he's like checking all his gear and making sure the time is right. This is also where he decides to go back 10 minutes earlier to try to warn Doc because he, gets shot. But he's like, oh, this is working. Flux capacitor, fluxing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like you mentioned earlier about just his delivery of lines. Like, if that was very stoic and serious, I get a little laugh because,
It's
it's
silly.
not. It's silly because, he's 17 years old and not a mad scientist. He doesn't know what a flux
Yes.
capacitor does. He just knows he needs it. So it's either fluxing or capacitorizing. I don't know how to say that, but
Capacitating.
that sounds different. But yes,
Yeah.
either way, yeah.
Yeah, I liked that too. To your point, though, when he's sitting there and we know that everything's kind of falling apart over at Doc's end, and then also with Marty, I think there's a point where the car doesn't quite start, right?
It doesn't start, yeah.
Right. And I was like getting so nervous he wasn't going to make it back. Obviously, I've seen this movie before. I don't remember every little bit of it, but I remember the major plot points, like
Right.
him making it back.
Yeah, but that's good tension.
But it's good,
writing,
yeah.
good editing. They were doing it on the fly, right? And the music is so good. You get some of that, like we're term, the Back to the Future theme, but the beating part's a little different, it's more suspenseful, and as he gets closer, it's built up to the theme we know. I mentioned when they were in the mall parking lot, it's probably because at 1 a.m. probably because no cars. You're able to scoot around this car fast, go to 88 miles per hour to do the experiment. Here's like, I don't know, it's 10:04 in the evening on a Saturday with the school dance. Could you imagine if like there was traffic or parked cars or a kid or
Yeah.
dog ran out in the middle of the street while this little kid's trying to drive to 88 miles per hour in like this very small, quaint town square?
Dog runs out in the middle of the street and Marty veers off course. Car goes into the river.
Right.
Just like Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
Movie magic. The street is clear.
Right. Well, that's 1955. Everyone's back in bed.
That too, I guess.
I don't know. Or they're parked somewhere.
You know his mom is.
Whoa. Everything turns out okay. Lightning strikes, assuming just a small shock for Doc as he plugs it in at the same time the current goes down. Obviously, he doesn't die, so he's okay. I love the transition where they're showing the spent, burnt up clock tower because the lightning just hit it. And we are thinking that it's, from Doc's point of view or something, whatever, because it just happened in 1955.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's 1985, and a helicopter goes by, and we see the grimier, grittier looking town square. And I just thought that was a really cool transition.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think I realized how grimy their town square was until I saw this juxtaposition.
Yeah, but it's funny because it's, there's no place like home, and Marty's like, oh, everything looks great, everything's beautiful, and it's kind of funny because we're noticing how it's gross. And then
Yes.
there's Fred, the local bum, I guess, and he's like, Fred, you look great.
Yeah. It's good. And he runs down to the mall parking lot to try to save Doc, right?
As I mentioned, this is now the Lone Pine Plaza. It used to be Twin Pine, but Marty ruined that.
Right. Marty watches the scene play out where Doc gets shot. Basically, he arrives too late. He sees himself go to the past, but we get this nice reveal where Marty is like next to Doc crying because he was too late to save him. Doc just sits up.
Yeah, and he took precaution after all.
Marty had written him a letter warning him about this. Doc ripped it up because he was past Doc was very adamant, like he doesn't want to know anything about the future. It'll change things too much. And I guess at the last minute, he like taped it back together to make sure.
Right.
Yeah.
He's inquisitive, so why not?
So Marty's at home. He passes out in his bed. Literally, I wrote, ew, he's sleeping in his jeans. And then I laughed because his brother even says something about that when he gets up. He's like, oh, you slept in your clothes again?
Yeah. His house is slightly changed. It's the same house. It's not a bigger house. It's just like,
right.
I feel like it's tidier. It looks nicer. You could tell the family has some mild success. Dave is now wearing a suit to work. His sister, which I don't know if she has a name, she's more popular. She has plans where in the previous timeline, she's like, how do I meet people?
Yeah.
George and Lorraine come home. They're dressed nicer. They are more in shape and look better. They are more together. Where in the previous 85, they seem a little distant. They're just too busy doing other things. This looks like a couple that have stayed in love.
Yeah. To your point, their furniture is a little nicer. It looks like they have a slightly fancier breakfast, like maybe better food. His parents they're coming home from, is it racquetball?
I would imagine
something like that. So maybe they're country club members or something.
Yeah.
Something about whatever sport they were doing implies they have some wealth. It seems like a rich people sport. I kept wanting to say pickleball, but that's not right because that was not
yet.
Yep, not yet. It's everywhere now, though. And then we get the big reveal that Biff, does he directly work for George, or is he just here to like work on George's car?
I think Biff still has his business, or he works at a business that's like with cars, because as he's waxing George's car, he's got a truck next to him. It's like a tow truck. So I would imagine that George hired Biff to come over, take care of the car, stuff like that. So whether he works for him, like, I don't think he works for George as far as like he works with George's company, but he is being paid to do something right now from George. So the roles are kind of reversed.
Yes. But yeah, everyone in his family is a little bit happier, a little more successful. And I guess when Marty goes outside, he realizes he has his own car. Is that what I'm supposed to get out of that?
Yeah, the 4x4 that he was looking longingly at the beginning of the film.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. I didn't put that together, obviously.
I got you.
Yeah, thank you. So Jennifer shows up.
Yes.
I do like her line about like, oh, you're acting like you haven't seen me in a week.
And he says I haven't.
Yeah. And again, they're about to kiss and Doc blows it.
Yeah, he comes smashing through. I laughed when he hit the garbage can because it just reminded me of Home Alone where they kept knocking over the statue.
Yeah. Tell your wife I wrote Doc blocked.
She's going to listen. That's a good one, too. Both you ladies got some good ones.
Thank you. Make sure she knows that, because apparently you didn't think it was funny at the time.
I told her. I said it was funny.
Okay. Last note, Billy Zane is in this movie.
Yeah. I told you. I did not know.
I didn't know until this watch either, so. My last point about the movie as it stands. Imagine being 17 and finding out you stay with your high school boyfriend or girlfriend forever and have kids with them. Kind of heavy.
Yeah.
Hey. So originally, in, I guess, the first draft of the script, Marty's father was going to become a boxer as a result of being so good at punching out Biff.
Nope, don't like that.
Yeah, I know.
It's also very clearly a lucky shot.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not like... He doesn't have, like, form. Like,
or muscles.
Yeah, I know. And then Marty's well, in general, I guess 1985 was going to look a lot different, more futuristic, more advanced. But everyone who went over the script didn't like it that 1985 changed that much. And from what I understand, when we see Doc in the end looking very futuristic, with his hovering car and everything, that was more like what 1985 was going to end up looking like when Marty got back.
Yeah, I don't like that. I'm glad they nixed that.
Yeah.
Because, like, how off-putting would it be to be in 1985 and to watch this movie that takes place partly in 1985 and to be that different because of why? Like, I get the family dynamic changing. I get, the dynamic between George and Biff changing. But that wouldn't affect the rest of the world.
Yeah, I agree. Like, the things that do change make sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So, we said the budget was 14 million, bumped up to about 19 million. It grossed 381.1 million worldwide. Biggest movie of 1985.
I wonder if the 39 other studios were shitting their pants.
I know. This is like Home Alone levels of budget compared to box office. Like,
yeah.
Huge. So it was released into a really crowded market. Again, this was summer movie season. Apparently 1985 was just really crowded. I think it was something like double the films were on the release schedule compared to the year before. But also, I did not learn this until doing research for this movie in particular. Ticket sales were down 17% compared to 1984, which I feel like doesn't sound like a big deal to us now because everyone knows movie theater attendance is down. But, at this time, like we had mentioned, home video was just starting. If you did want to buy a VHS, apparently it was $80. So it's sort of weird that people weren't going to the movies because that's the only way. If you want to see movies, is really the only way you could.
I'm curious as to why.
Industry executives at the time blamed lack of originality, a glut of youth-oriented films targeted at those under 18.
Like, I know we didn't pick every movie that came out this year for this season, but the really popular ones that are big hits that we are talking about now because of that, I don't know. I think half of them so far by the time this airs is about the youths.
Exactly. And they're obviously, for the most part, doing well.
Right. And these studios seem to be, they don't know, like, it's PG, we're going to say the F word. It's R, we're going to have cute and cuddly things. Guys, what? Do you have kids? Do you know what kids are?
Yeah, no one knows what they're doing. But yet, for 1985, most of the films scheduled for release were still aimed at younger audiences, more fantasy and supernatural type movies. And again, because it was the 80s and the Reaganomics of it all, it was kind of technological inspiration for the fantasy elements, not like a Lady Hawk kind of fantasy. Ironically, Lady Hawk did not do well, right? So I don't know. Maybe the hits that we're seeing in 1985, maybe the youth-oriented films up until now weren't huge hits.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why they were so hesitant to put out The Breakfast Club, for example. But adding to their concern, Michael J. Fox wasn't available to do promo for the film because he was filming Family Ties Vacation in London.
Was that a TV thing or was that a movie?
I don't know, like a TV movie maybe?
Okay.
It makes me think of when they would do like special episodes of Full House where they went to Disney World or something. Or Hawaii, whatever. Do you know what I'm talking about?
That's what I'm thinking of.
I'm pretty sure this was a movie, but TV movie. The way that it was listed on the sources I was reading, I think it's a movie. Also, Back to the Future, it was already out there that they had to raise their budget to secure a certain actor. And that was considered very risky at the time. That wasn't something that really happened where they'd play ball to secure whoever they wanted. And it's really, Michael J. Fox wasn't a movie star at this point.
Right.
So it was even considered even riskier the way they did it. However, like we said, lucky for them, it's a huge hit. It was considered the only blockbuster of 1985 along with Rambo First Blood Part 2.
Okay.
It earned more than double the box office of Cocoon. And I want to say Cocoon was like the number one movie for some of the
The
year.
first half of the year,
Okay,
it
yeah.
was up there.
Mm-hmm. I've never seen it. I just remember us talking about it uh,
Yes, yes.
earlier in the season. Power of Love by Huey Lewis in the News was also a huge hit. Back to the Future had pretty positive reviews from the critics, definitely more so than we've seen with any of the other previous movies we've talked about this season. Most reviewers agreed that it was one of the most entertaining films of the year because of its focus on storytelling instead of pure spectacle, as they called it. The Hollywood Reporter said that despite Steven Spielberg's producer role, it was purely Zemeckis' vision, being more subtle, gentler, and less noisy.
Hmm. It's funny because much like Gremlins or even some of the beginning parts of Poltergeist, I knew Steven Spielberg presents, but like it
Right?
very much feels like Spielberg. It feels like E.T., this small town, this quaintness, this slice of life, which he does that very well. I guess maybe because of this movie and growing up watching it, I kind of did think, at least for this trilogy, Zemeckis is either influenced by Spielberg, like we saw with Poltergeist, or he's just,
Mm-hmm.
I always associate him as like Steven Spielberg adjacent or Steven Spielberg light, at
Yeah.
least when it comes to these three specific movies.
Yeah, and Bob Gale had said in some interviews that Spielberg was barely on set. It was like he was there for the first day of filming just to sort of see them off, and his involvement was limited. And the quote that Bob Gale said was something like, well, as it should be, because he was only executive producer. Again, I just imagine Steven Spielberg learned all these lessons from the Poltergeist
Yeah.
debacle. So,
I mean, even Goonies has that feel to it. Like, I don't know, maybe it's these movies that came out in this time frame.
hmm
Yes, Spielberg has touched them somehow, some way. He was around or directing or helped writing or come up with the story. But yeah,
hmm
they all do, for me, fit in this bubble of my youth where they're all so similar in feels and vibes
yeah,
specifically. I know it doesn't really give any real technical explanation besides how I feel about them, but I still feel like most people could lump these all together.
yeah. Spielberg vibes. I completely understand what you mean by that. I get it. David Kerr, who was a film critic for the Chicago Tribune, the New York Times, he went on to be a film curator at the Museum of Modern Art. He said that Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis were among the first generation of filmmakers openly influenced by growing up on televised entertainment, and that this inspiration is evident throughout Back to the Future.
Huh. But how, sir?
I don't know. I have to think about this a little bit.
Maybe the writing and pacing? It's very quick, and if it's
Mm-hmm.
something you're watching on TV, especially before
A
the 80s,
sitcom that, yeah,
it's
had to
yeah,
fit it
they
in.
don't have like hour-long Stranger Thing episodes.
Right. I mean, yeah, maybe. Back to the Future won an Oscar for Best Sound Effects Editing. It was also nominated for Best Original Song for Power of Love.
See?
Let's see, Huey Lewis. It was released on VHS on May 22nd, 1986, priced at $79.95. We talk about this in our previous episode, or no, I'm sorry, in the Return to Oz episode, that VHS, this was a standard price point for them because studios felt that they were going to lose so much money from people not coming to the theaters for repeated viewings. And also, there was some argument that this price was more aimed at something like video stores that would buy them to be stock, that they would then, recoup their money for them. Back to the Future sold 450,000 units at this price point. It was the first film to sell that many copies, and it was also the most rented cassette of the year.
Holy shit.
hmm Merch, still a fairly new concept in 1985. I feel like our previous research has credited ET with kind of starting merchandising because we
Yeah, that
mentioned this
sounds
a little
right.
bit with the Gremlins. There was a novelization released in 1985 after the movie came out. I just thought this was cute. A rideable DeLorean was released in 1986 for like little kids.
That's awesome.
'Cause sometimes we talk about maybe the movie isn't meant for little kids, but then they merchandise it in a way that gets a little confusing, like with Gremlins. There were also tons of other like video game adaptations throughout the years, and I think there's a for the 40th anniversary there was a Lego DeLorean set that came out. There was just way too much info in Back to the Future for me to include everything. It's also credited with a resurgence in skateboarding in the 1980s.
I could totally see that.
The creator of the DeLorean, John DeLorean, was a fan of Back to the Future. He sent personal letters to Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis, thanking them for using the DeLorean. It was apparently not a popular car before Back to the Future was released. After the movie came out, it became a popular collector's item, and the DeLorean Motor Company released kits allowing fans to make their vehicle look like the DeLorean time machine.
That's awesome.
Yep. I wanted to point out that Back to the Future, the ride, was developed for Universal Studios Hollywood and Universal Studios Florida. It ran from 1991 to 2007. I just wanted to include this because I feel like this is the first movie that we've seen that sort of crossover with. We haven't talked too much about like the theme parks related to Universal or Disney. For the Back to the Future ride, at least the first version of the ride, the development was supervised by Steven Spielberg. I think they said it involved Doc chasing after Biff, like Biff steals something from him.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been on this ride a lot.
Oh, okay.
There was a point where like I'd go to Universal Studios every other summer somehow. We would go, and then I would go with my cousin, and then I'd go with Tom or whatever. But I was on this ride a lot because, you know, one of my favorite movies. So they also have Jaws, which we didn't talk about that when we talked about Jaws.
Oh,
but
yeah,
they have Jaws
that's right.
the ride as well. But I think as far as timing goes, this is a little bit bigger of a splash because the ride comes out in 91. Movie's pretty new still. And I feel like Jaws is, they added it because they own the rights and like, well, it's a big movie. We should make this a ride too.
Right, yeah. In 2007, the United States Library of Congress selected Back to the Future for preservation in the National Film Registry. There have been quite a few reunions because obviously this movie has endured throughout the decades. It seems like usually when there would be a reunion, it would be for charity, notably the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Disease. I think it's fairly well known at this point that Michael J. Fox has Parkinson's. They reunited in 2019 for the Turner Classic Movie Classic Film Festival to premiere the 4K restoration of the movie. Anytime these casts end up at the Turner Classic Movies Festival, it's like a knife to my heart.
It's a knife to your heart. I just feel like my back aches a little bit more every time I hear that.
Yeah, I know.
That's like when 98.5 Classic Rock plays Nirvana or Metallica.
One of the classic rock stations was playing Blink-182 recently, and I was like, wow, okay.
And you said, what's my age again?
In 2020, Josh Gad hosted a Back to the Future retrospective. I assume this was on Zoom because they make note of the pandemic. I'm pretty sure we talked about Josh Gad hosting a similar thing for The Princess Bride during the pandemic. I don't know if this was just like Josh Gad's thing during COVID or what.
Probably was. What else did he have to do?
I mean, yeah, and maybe they just figured like people need something fun to do at home. Like, who knows? That is about it, I think. Until we get up to the sequels.
Till we get to the sequels.
Mm-hmm.
Sequels that wasn't going to happen. Because, you know, this movie barely happened.
Yeah.
Right?
Which is funny considering how well they set this up for a sequel.
Yeah. I always thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
But
anyway,
we're getting too much into the future. Let's go back to the past here. So, like I said, a sequel was not initially planned. And the teaser ending of Doc, Marty, and Jennifer flying off in the DeLorean kind of just suggested they were going to do some fun things off screen. They, whatever, like, powers that be didn't care. It's like, okay, we barely got through this movie. Let's just
we barely got through this movie. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like it was a good way of, like you said, like they wanted 85 to look different. So it's a good way to kind of bring a little bit of the original script in with the flying car and the crazy get up that Doc is wearing.
Yeah.
We do see at the end of the film that he doesn't need plutonium anymore. He puts a bunch of garbage, and one of them, God, I wish it was a Coca-Cola. I think it was another
It's a
High Life.
beer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's pouring beer in there. It was funny because he like slowly pours it all out and then throws the can in there. I'm like, sir, you just could have put the whole can in there.
Yeah,
Like,
I
why?
noticed that too.
Why the dramatics?
Hmm.
But Universal Pictures was eager to pursue a sequel based on, how much money obviously they made with Back to
Right.
the Future. And critical success too, because that helps. But I think
Hmm.
in this situation, it's the money. However, Zemeckis and Gale were reluctant. Well, they wanted clarification to Universal Pictures if they would, if necessary, make a sequel without them, because they said they were going to move on either way.
Mm.
So that kind of tied Robert and Bob's hands to. I mean, it's their baby. They wrote the script. They
Yes.
fought through hoops to get it done. They had to trade IPs with another studio. Like, they didn't
Hmm.
really want to do it. They didn't
Hmm.
want to kind of possibly tarnish this movie, their baby.
Yeah.
But Universal said they were going to do it without them if they had to. So they said, let's do it. They wrote a script that was very long, and they split it into two films, which became part two and part three. And the films were shot back to back, which is great because as a kid, I always thought opposite. I thought they did one and two because of just the ending, which is the beginning. And they just did a really good job of patching everything up and explaining.
Yes.
And then, the third one is just completely different. But we're not there yet. Let's go to Back to the Future 2, November 22nd, 1989. Zemeckis and Bob Gale return to direct and write. Most of the cast returns except Crispin Glover and Claudia Wells, and they were replaced with Jeffrey Weissman and
Hmm.
Elizabeth Shue. Going to get to Elizabeth Shue first here. So, the original Jennifer, Claudia, was planned to reprise her role as Marty's girlfriend,
Hmm.
but the film kind of coincided with a family crisis. I think her mother's health was in jeopardy, and she had to back out to be with her mom, which is, the right decision to make, I think.
I read in one of her interviews that her mom was diagnosed with cancer like right around the same time. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So then the producers cast Elizabeth Shue as a replacement. They reshot the closing scenes for the first film for the beginning of part two,
Hmm.
nearly shot for shot match. So they didn't just use the ending, which we just saw 5 years
Mm.
ago, 4 years ago. They had to reshoot it because of the new actress. Which, after the Eric Schultz thing, you figured they'd be really good at this by now.
Yeah.
Replacing Crispin Glover was a little bit of a different story. Crispin was asked to come back to play George. He
Hmm.
did express interest, but again, different stories here. I'll tell this one first. He did
Hmm.
express interest, but could not come up with the agreement about his salary. In
Okay.
1992 interview on Howard Stern, he said that the producer's highest offer was $125,000, which was less than half of other returning cast members were offered. I feel
Hmm.
like we've seen this before. We've seen this in modern
Yes.
times, and I
Hmm.
understand. I understand. This is your job. This is how you make a living.
I could be wrong, but his issue in particular was that Leah Thompson was going to be making
Yes,
significantly more than him, and they're the parents, so I think
right.
he felt he should at least be on her level.
Yeah, and I think the article also quotes Biff's salary, which was also more.
Oh, okay.
So he's definitely, as far as this interview goes, getting the short end of the paycheck stick.
Hmm.
In 2013, he did an interview on Opie and Anthony, and he said that, in his words, the primary reason for him not doing part two was a philosophical disagreement on the film's message. Glover felt that the story rewarded the characters with financial gain, such as Marty's truck, rather than love.
Okay.
Not what I got out of that.
I mean,
Okay,
look, if you want to have principles about a movie that made almost $400 million, I guess, I don't know.
so my thought is, first of all, I never got that. I just thought that, yes, they had a little bit of financial success when, he stood up to Biff and the roles got reversed.
Hmm.
But how are you going to say that you don't want to do a movie because of some sort of
Hmm.
message about money
Yeah.
in 2013, but then in a previous year's interview, you said it was about the money?
Yeah.
Now, I get it. It also could be principle. Like, hey, these other characters, these other actors are getting this much money. How come I'm not
Mm-hmm.
getting this much money? But then you're like, well, now it's all about the money. I don't like this. I don't know. To me, it seems a little wishy-washy and kind
Yeah.
of talking on both sides of your mouth.
Yeah. Convenient now that they would not meet his salary demands, apparently.
Yes.
So
You also had mentioned earlier that Zemeckis thought he was nuts.
I think Bob Gale was technically the one that called him nuts, but I
Oh,
don't think
yes.
either of them really enjoyed working with him much.
Yeah. You said Bob Gill called him nuts. Zemeckis had a hard time directing him because he would go off
Mm-hmm.
kilter as far as blocking goes. And I mean, that's
Yeah.
part of the directing. If your actor doesn't go where he's supposed to go, it makes your job much harder.
Yeah. I'm just imagining like the camera crew chasing him around.
What is this, like a documentary? What's going on here?
Right.
All these shaky cameras. Yeah.
They had to go handheld.
This scene really signifies George's tension here. Um,
Uh,
so, obviously, he does not come back. So they have to. They use some footage they already filmed with Glover from the first film and new footage with the new actor, Jeffrey Wiseman, who wore prosthetics, including a false chin, nose, and cheekbones to look like Glover. They also use several techniques to kind of put him out of the main shot. He was upside down at one scene. They put him in the background. They put him in sunglasses, things to help hide that it's not Crispin Glover. Which I get it and it makes sense. However, they did not have permission to use his likeness, or did they? They didn't own it and they didn't have permission to use it, which sounds like the same thing, but it's just basically what contract do you sign. And obviously, they don't have either. So as a result, he, as in Crispin Glover, sued and he won because again they were using
hmm.
and making money off of his likeness, and he said, "No, you can't do that. You didn't ask me my permission. You basically replaced me, and you wouldn't pay me enough." And it's not about the money. It's not so much about the money that he sued to get
Yep.
money. But he did win, and because of that, there are now clauses in the Screen Actors Guild collective bargaining agreement stating that producers and actors are not allowed to use such methods to reproduce the likeness of other actors. In my opinion, it's kind of a good thing, especially, we joked earlier about like the whole AI thing with actors and using their likeness
Mm-hmm.
and without them having to even be on set. So it's in a way kind of a good thing, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just like be in one movie and now they're just going to have someone else off the street for a fraction of your asking price and just put a bunch
Mm-hmm.
of prosthetics and sunglasses on them and boom, you're the same character.
Right. And like you said with the AI thing, they can't use your digital likeness to keep going with you as an actor without actually having you there to pay. But two questions. One being, I guess the difference with the rights, because Universal still could move forward with the rights to a sequel without the original crew, without Zemeckis, without Bob Gale. I guess that's different because they own the rights to I guess they call it an intellectual property, or like they own the rights to like a thing and not a person.
Yes.
Maybe that's the difference here. But then also, I guess I don't understand the point in the first place of having, unless they thought it was going to be funny, like a bit. I don't understand why they had to go to such great lengths to make George look the same when I assume they did not do this to Elizabeth Shue. I understand that Jennifer was not in the first movie nearly as much as Crispin Glover, but I don't know, recasts happen all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, really, they recast. I mean, right now I'm thinking of The Mummy, even though I know it's like a different decade, but they totally recast Rachel Weisz's character.
Right. Yeah, it does happen. Look at all the Batmans we had over the years. So
Well,
until it
yeah.
became a thing to franchise and have a multi-year, multi-movie contract deal.
Yeah.
But I think, and this is no offense to either of the actresses who played Jennifer,
Mm-hmm.
they got someone of similar looks and style.
Okay.
Crispin Glover, he has a look. Also, I think the bigger thing is, like you said, Jennifer wasn't in the first movie as much, but and I'll get there in a second, the plot to Back to the Future 2, there is specific times where Marty has to interact with George again, and We just saw that happen in the first film. We were going back to the dance, we're going back to the school, we're going back to 1955. If it's a whole new actor, I feel like that'd be weird. Plus, they had to use other footage from the previous movies because of the plot of the film. And I think if you don't have this guy looking like Crispin Glover, it's not going to work. It seemed like Glover was kind of all over the place with these interviews and what he really wanted out of it.
All over the place, much like his blocking.
yeah.
Well, I definitely want to rewatch the second one now that I'm learning all of this. I had no idea that he even sued them or anything.
This movie, like I said, started where the original film left off, with Doc, Marty, and Jennifer going back to the future, and it's to aid their children. It's kind of funny how Doc in 55 is like, I can't read this letter, I can't change the future. Then he comes back to 85 from the future. It's like, oh my god, we have to change your future.
Yeah.
That changed quickly.
Yeah.
That's okay. We need a reason for them to go 30 years in the future.
Sure, right.
So Marty basically intervenes dressed as Marty Jr. So luckily, Marty Jr. looks just like his father. And as Marty Jr., he refuses to commit a crime with Griff's gang, Griff being the grandson of Biff. And yeah, they changed the name just slightly. It's a family name, you know.
It's a family.
So, you know, he turns it down. Marty Jr. doesn't do this crime. Griff gang does. They go to jail. Marty has a moment of weakness where he sees the sports almanac and he wants to obviously play some sports bets to get some capital gain. Maybe this is where Crispin Glover comes in and says it's all about, you know, financial gains. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know.
His principles.
But Doc steers him away from that, saying he shouldn't do that. It's not right. And they go to throw or burn the sports book away. Can't remember which one, but he gets distracted. And I think old man Biff, I forget how he gets there. I think he sees the DeLorean fly away in the beginning, and I think he like kind of sneaks on board at some point because they're going back and forth between 3 different timelines. Like I said, I haven't seen this one in a while.
Okay.
But elderly Biff steals it, brings it to 55 to his younger self, gives it to him, convinces him this will change your life. Yeah, they're in a car where they actually listen to a live sports show, and he tells him what's going to happen, and so Biff believes him.
Okay.
It's funny, I bring this up because you mentioned it. Young Biff says to his older self, make like a tree and get out of here. And old Biff's like, leave, make like a tree and leave, you idiot. I do love that part. So Biff obviously alters the future. At some point in this new future, George dies. Probably to use that actor less.
Right.
So now Biff forcefully remarries Lorraine. I feel like so they remarry or they get married, Biff and Lorraine. I don't feel like they're happy, but it's probably because of money, because George didn't leave him with anything, I guess. I don't know.
Oh.
So now they have to go back to 55 to stop old Biff from giving young Biff the almanac so he doesn't get it to get rich to alter his future. So they go back to the past to go back to the future to save the past from being the future.
Jeez, okay.
I'm making it sound confusing on purpose. It is a little confusing. I read that this one wasn't as received as well as 1 or 3, which surprised me because I remember growing up, 3 was not my favorite. Still really liked it. I like the confusion of going to the 3 different timelines. I like the scenes in 1955 where Marty, who's now dressed like a blues brother, he's got like dark glasses. He's trying to like, he's not supposed to interact with himself who's there to interact with his parents. So he already messed that timeline up once.
Oh,
so
right.
he has to hide. But the way they do and they interact with each other, I thought it was really cool. And of course, the hoverboard. All the things from the future, how crazy it looked, which is probably what they wanted to do from the original script. And I'm glad it made sense to put it 30 years in the future, although we have none of these things still.
Yeah.
Or most of them we don't have.
That's true.
Okay, so at the end of the movie, after they fix the timeline, Doc, in a hovering time machine, is struck by lightning and disappears. Instantaneously, Marty then receives a letter from 1885 Doc saying he's all good, he's got shot back to the past or whatever. And then Marty races to town to tell 1955 Doc what just happened, even though that Doc just sent Marty back to 1985 from the first movie. Because don't forget, he's in 55 to prevent Biff with sportsbook and betting and all that stuff. And then Doc passes out. We end there.
Okay.
So that was 2. Back to the Future Part 3, May 25th, 1990. Everyone returns who returned in the previous film. Again, they shot that back to back. And we add Mary Steenburgen, who also was in Elf and Step Brothers. People probably know her from those 2 films, if they didn't grow up with her in Back to the Future 3 like I did.
Yeah.
That's what I always think of her in.
I always think of her as a mom, and it's probably because of Elf.
Yeah. I feel like Elf and Step Brothers kind of helped like resurge her career, I think.
Mm-hmm. She's married to Ted Danson, and they've done like some like charity stuff together. Like they're a very public couple.
Nice.
So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So where we left off, Marty in 1955, Doc, they end up fixing the DeLorean, and despite the warning letter that Doc from 1885 sends to Marty, Marty decides to go back to rescue him because he's stuck there because he doesn't have the technology at home. Marty goes back in time and ends up staying with distant relatives in the newly founded Hill Valley where the Buford gang controls. Mad Dog, distant relatives to, surprise, Biff. And it's the same actor, which as a kid, I did not like. As a kid, I didn't even think it was Biff because like they put on like the stubble makeup and the handlebar mustache, and they did a really good job.
Okay, yeah.
But a lot of the same sight gags happen in a tavern. Marty, who's dressed horribly, he's wearing like pink, and he's dressed like what he thinks a cowboy looks like, and everyone else is clearly dressed like they're in the Old West.
Oh, I see.
But Mad Dog comes in, and it's a very similar shot to the first film at the diner, where it's like over Biff's shoulder, and you see little Marty.
Yeah.
Yeah, they bring back some of that stuff, which is really nice.
Nice.
So after some convincing Marty to Doc agrees to return to 1985, but there's a problem of no gasoline and not being able to get the car to proper speed. He comes up with a plan to put the DeLorean in front of a steam locomotive. At some point when they're out there field testing, he's like looking at the railroad tracks or whatever. He saves the life of a local school teacher, Clara Clayton, and then falls in love, of course, but committing to the plan to go back to 1985 because Marty also saw a tombstone with Doc 6 days later after he sent the letter. He's shot by Mad Dog. So he's trying to prevent Doc again from being shot and murdered. So he breaks off with Clara. Clara's get mad. She doesn't believe his crazy story about being from the future and a scientist. So she leaves, somehow comes back and sees they do again like a model thing like they did in the first one with the train and whatnot. That makes her believe that Doc was telling the truth, and she of course wants to go say sorry. Meanwhile, Mad Dog captures Doc, forcing Marty to duel him, but Marty tricks Mad Dog and him and his gang get arrested. So again, we see that in the second film as well. We're repeating all these things. Though one of the jokes that happen a lot is someone calling Marty chicken or scared or yellow, and he does not like that. He kind of has a little chip on his shoulder, being a little guy, I guess.
Okay, being a little guy.
It's the chicken hawk syndrome, I call it.
Mm.
So, as I said, Clara realizes Doc was telling the truth. She boards the train that is being used to push the time machine, of course. She ends up falling off, and Marty, who has the hoverboard from the future in his car, still like floats it over, and Doc saves Clara. They hit speed with Marty alone in the DeLorean, and he takes off right before, of course, the bridge is out. He takes off before he plummets to his death.
Okay.
Yeah, that brings them back to 1985. He gets challenged to like a street race by Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Okay. I think his name is Needles. In the future, Marty is like, in life, you know, and it all revolves around some sort of accident that happens. And so, as Needles, aka Flea, is trying to get Marty to race, Marty finally learns that he doesn't have to prove himself to anybody. He doesn't care if he calls him chicken or yellow or scared.
Mm-hmm.
He sees what would have been the accident, and he's like, "Oh my god!" And then there's a letter that he gets fired from his boss, and the letter disappears in Jennifer's hands because somehow that accident causes a downward spiral, and he loses the job, and that's why they live a meh kind of life. Okay. While they're realizing all this, a floating locomotive comes. It's Doc. He souped up the train, and it now can travel through time. Clara is there, and they have cowboy children, and they kind of just say their goodbyes, and they note the future is not written, and they take off to go who knows where. It's so very much like the original ending, where like, could this be a cliffhanger, or they're just gonna have an adventure off screen, and we don't need to know about it.
Okay, yeah.
And everybody's happy, I guess.
Nice.
Yeah, power of love.
Yeah.
So that's that trilogy. But as we see, the love for this film, possibly all three of these films, like there's a big fan base, obviously. They came up with an animated television series, Back to the Future, aired on CBS between 1991 and 1992. It obviously will follow Doc and Marty, and they have adventures through various historical periods. And apparently it was intercut with live-action Christopher Lloyd as Doc performing science experiments along Bill Nye.
Oh.
I don't remember any of this. I don't think I've ever saw this.
No.
The animated intercut with live action makes me think of the Super Mario Brothers cartoon. That's what I'm thinking of. I know this is not it, but they had that same format. In 2015, there was a short film, Doc Brown Saves the World, and that was to celebrate the film's 30th anniversary. A musical theater production, Back to the Future, debuted in February 2020 at the Manchester Opera House in England. To positive reviews, the musical was written by Gail and Zemeckis. Gail described it as the best way to give fans more Back to the Future without adding to the film series. Keep in mind, they didn't even want to do the original sequels. They were kind of strong-armed that. So, yeah, it makes sense. You're getting something new, but also familiar without kind of tarnishing anything.
Also, February 2020, famously a wonderful time to premiere anything new that involves a crowd.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they had a month run.
Sure.
In 2024, Zemeckis said he was interested in adapting the musical into a movie. So kind of like, I guess, the Mean Girl situation.
Yeah.
Where it's a movie, then a musical, then a movie.
Yes.
It confuses me. My brain doesn't get it. So, obviously, overall, the Back to the Future franchise is considered one of the most successful film franchises in history. Or in future. I don't know.
Okay, so that all being said, did it hold up for you?
Yes, obviously, yes. Subjectively, it makes me feel like a kid again, like a teenager again, like Joe in his early 20s, like a college student. Like, it's one of my favorite movies. Still say that after this viewing. So, yeah, it hits the marks as far as all the nostalgia feels and good vibes, and just makes me feel like a little kid, and I have a good time. Objectively, I will say that it's also, to quote what I wrote here, it's a fucking great piece of cinema. I mean, seriously though, the story is great, the writing is great. We talked about like the little foreshadowing callbacks to the characters. The timing and pacing is great. The score, even the Huey Lewis and the News songs, not quite usually my musical choice, but
right.
they work in the film.
Works,
they're catchy. If I hear it in the radio, I'm keeping it on.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun watching this again. I don't have the same connection to it that you do. Like, this wasn't something I watched a ton as a kid. I just kind of always knew about it. But still, I had a lot of fun. Michael J. Fox is funny. He's charming. He's super watchable. So yeah, I'm excited to show this to my kids sometime soon.
Nice.
I found this quote from Christopher Lloyd, who plays Doc, that I wanted to end on. He says, I didn't imagine that 30 years later there would be this enthusiasm and excitement about it, this celebration. I didn't see that coming at all. Back to the Future came out, and there was a 2 year lapse, and we did 2 and 3 together. We were just making another movie and hoping it gets past opening night. But the kids who saw this film, they've grown up and had kids, who have grown up and had kids. It's exponential and it just keeps spreading out more and more. But the film has aged well. I saw it last night. It still seems very contemporary.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Well, we would love to hear your thoughts on Back to the Future, as well as your own favorite films from 1985. You can find us on Instagram at Back Through the Lens Pod and on Facebook at Back Through the Lens. You can also email us at backthroughthelenspodcast@gmail.com. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please leave us a rating and review. It's the best way to support our show.
If you enjoyed our show today, please give us a like and follow for updates on new and future episodes. Our show is produced by our host, Rachel Campbell, and myself, Joe Siomick, with additional help and support from Peter Telp of LPV Productions. Peter, Rachel, and I are also the executive producers. Our awesome logo is brought to you by Tom Fracci, and our wonderful theme song is by Matt Tarek. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more trips into our movie-watching past, or future, on Back Through the Lens.
The role of Jessica was still open, so...
Nope.
Damn it. The role of
Sorry.
Jennifer, not Jessica.
Not Jessica. It's me, Jessica.
Why do you do this?
I don't know.
Oh my god. Why do I bother?